The story follows a man feared across the martial world as the Divine Demon, a peerless swordsman driven by vengeance. He faces 9 sect leaders at once. Despite being outnumbered, his swordsmanship is so sharp and terrifying that even these veterans cannot comprehend his movements. Each strike lands with perfect accuracy, and one by one, the sect leaders fall before they can understand how they are being defeated. As panic spreads among them, they come to a single conclusion. He is not human but a monster, even when the remaining fighters manage to restrain him and drive a blade through his heart. He refuses to fall, pushing past a fatal wound. He finishes them all, sending every last enemy to their end. With that final battle, his name becomes eternally engraved in history as the Divine Demon. As death finally approaches, his consciousness begins to fade, and memories from his past surface. He feels an unexpected sense of calm, believing he has completed everything he set out to do. His mind drifts back to his childhood, when he was known as a troublemaker and once nearly beaten to death by 3 other children. That moment changed his life, as it was then that his master appeared and took him in, shaping him into a warrior. From that point onward, his life became one soaked in blood. He survived by the sword, taking countless lives without hesitation. As these memories pass through his mind, he begins to question whether that was all his existence ever amounted to. In that quiet moment of reflection, another memory emerges, his wife. The happiest moments of his life were the ones spent beside her. Those peaceful days, however, were cruelly stolen from him. Overwhelmed by grief, he wonders what meaning his life truly held beyond revenge and violence. With tears falling, he finally accepts his end and closes his eyes. Instead of silence, he hears loud voices surrounding him. He assumes he has fallen into hell, but when he opens his eyes, he finds himself staring at a group of unfamiliar people hurling insults in his direction. Completely disoriented, he cannot make sense of where he is or what is happening. Nearby, 2 children stand close to him. One of them, a young boy, is desperately trying to protect his older brother, insisting that their clan's martial arts must not be handed over as long as his brother still lives. He is determined to keep the techniques within their family, the Flame Hua clan. As the situation unfolds, the opposing group proposes a solution that would supposedly settle everything. Seeing the clan's poverty, their leader suggests a gamble involving money and martial arts, to be decided through a duel where the winner would claim it all. This proposal shocks the younger brother, as his elder sibling is widely known to be completely talentless in martial arts. Overwhelmed by the chaos and confusion, the main character finally reacts, questioning why he is being addressed as someone else entirely when he knows that is not who he is. His response only deepens the confusion of those around him, who begin staring at him as if he has lost his mind. Jiang's rival pressed him for an answer, demanding to know what name he had just uttered. In response, Jiang revealed a title associated with divinity and demons alike. Rather than intimidating anyone, the declaration only amused him. He even mockingly suggested that he be called the ruler of the underworld instead. The provocation further angered his opponent, Chang Dobo, the second son of the powerful Changhua merchant group. The surrounding Mujin siblings were furious. They believed Jiang's behavior had gone far beyond embarrassment and into outright madness. His reckless attitude was already damaging the family's reputation. Even Bachun, the head of the Changhua merchant group, openly ridiculed the clan, declaring that their downfall was inevitable now that their eldest son had clearly lost his sanity. Jiang, however, remained silent throughout the exchange. He focused inward, attempting to piece together the strange situation unfolding around him. His lack of response led Dobo to assume that Jiang had accepted the challenge being laid before him. With that assumption, the duel was officially announced and scheduled to take place at the Bong Pavilion the following month. It was also emphasized that the duel was bound by the martial code, meaning there would be severe consequences should Jiang attempt to avoid it. Once the group departed, those who were supposed to be Jiang's siblings turned toward him. Panic evident in their expressions, they demanded to know how he intended to face a duel when he had never even wielded a sword in his life. The situation seemed hopeless to them. Jiang reacted by laughing. To him, swordsmanship was not unfamiliar. It was the very foundation of his existence. Acting on instinct, he tried to draw upon his inner energy. That was when he realized something horrifying. His energy was completely gone. There was not even a trace left within him. As frustration surged, he became aware of another devastating truth. His body was weak, fragile, and painfully frail. The strength he once possessed was nowhere to be found. His sister broke down at the sight of him, sobbing uncontrollably and begging him to return to his senses. The younger girl lashed out, calling him worthless and condemning him for allowing the merchant group to trample over their family. Her brother attempted to intervene, reprimanding her harsh words and urging her to apologize, but she refused. Overcome by resentment, she blamed Jiang for their parents' deaths before running away in tears. The young boy followed soon after, offering a quiet apology on his sister's behalf and explaining that her emotions often overwhelmed her judgment. Once he left, Jiang was left alone, drowning in confusion. Even children despised him now, labeling him a madman. His mind reeled. The last thing he remembered was mercilessly slaughtering sect leaders without hesitation. He had believed death would come peacefully after that. Instead, he had awakened inside the body of a broken and hated man. Overwhelmed, he collapsed to the ground, unable to understand who these children were or why they resented him so deeply. Moments later, a strange man rushed toward him in a panic. The man, who appeared to be his attendant, scolded him for leaving the house in such a weakened state and claimed he had been worried sick. Jiang responded with confusion, unable to recognize him at all. The attendant Masach was stunned. He assumed Jiang had suffered another episode, as the madness that plagued him had been worsening over the years. Believing that Jiang was experiencing severe memory loss, Masach began recounting his past. He explained that Hua Jiang had once been a prodigy, a child so talented that numerous orthodox sects competed to take him as a disciple. By the age of 23, he had risen to become the head of his clan. Masach admitted he was exhausted from repeating this story countless times over the years. Jiang found it hard to believe. With an energy core that no longer existed, the idea that he had once been exceptional seemed absurd. He then sought clarity about the so-called madness everyone kept mentioning. Masach recounted the incident that changed everything. 17 years ago, Jiang and Chang Dobo had engaged in an unofficial duel. Both had agreed to fight without using inner energy. At the time, Jiang was only 6, while Dobo was 9. The duel began fairly, but as it progressed, Dobo violated the agreement and struck Jiang with a punch infused with inner energy. That blow used the 7-wound fist technique, a brutal art passed down through the Kongdong sect. The technique's aftermath was devastating. Dobo had previously tested it on his own older brother, leaving him bedridden. Excited by its effects, Dobo had unleashed it on Jiang without hesitation. From that moment on, Jiang's condition deteriorated. His erratic behavior and broken state were attributed to the lingering effects of the forbidden technique. The clan believed this was the reason he had become a madman. Learning the truth filled Jiang with fury. The one responsible for ruining his body was now demanding a duel. He asked how Dobo had been punished for his actions. Masach explained that the final judgment had been made by Jiang's father. Despite Dobo being both a cousin and the son of the influential Changhua merchant group, one of the top 10 forces in the Central Plains, his punishment amounted to nothing more than a warning. Jiang was disgusted. Forgiving the man who had destroyed his son's future was, in his eyes, unforgivable weakness. He labeled the entire clan worthless before asking about his parents' whereabouts. Masach revealed the painful truth. Jiang's condition had worsened over the years, forcing his father into crippling debt while searching desperately for a cure. 9 years ago, his mother's illness became fatal. 3 years after that, his father followed her into death. To the world, Jiang became the son who destroyed his family and dragged the clan into ruin. Their reputation collapsed, leaving behind only debts, 2 loyal retainers, a handful of martial artists, and his 2 surviving siblings, his younger brother Huajin and his sister Hua Soyan. At last, Jiang understood why his sister harbored such hatred toward him. That night, Jiang studied the books left behind by the original owner of the body. From them, he learned that 30 years had passed since he had annihilated the 9 sects in his previous life. Now, he lived on in the body of a man with no energy core and a shattered reputation. With no regrets from his former life, Jiang resolved to live according to his own will and protect the helpless children left behind. However, he knew the Changhua merchant group remained a looming threat. They were the true architects behind the clan's destruction. His first priority became the duel with Dobo, scheduled for the following month. With a body that was effectively useless, Jiang decided to rebuild himself from the ground up. He began meditating, starting cultivation anew like a complete beginner. He recalled how difficult cultivation had been in his past life. Strangely, this time, things progressed smoothly. The body possessed an overwhelming, innate martial aptitude. As Jiang explored this hidden potential, a brilliant golden light flooded his room. His sudden scream echoed through the residence, alarming Masach and the retainers, who rushed inside. They found him collapsed on the floor. One retainer joked that he was dead, only to discover that Jiang's pulse was stronger than ever. Jiang suddenly seized the retainer, Overwhelmed by pain and confusion, he demanded to know why forming an energy core caused such unbearable agony. When pressed further, the retainer revealed the truth. Jiang possessed the heavenly martial body, a rare and heroic constitution chosen by the heavens themselves. Another wave of pain crashed over him as realization dawned. This constitution was the complete opposite of demonic cultivation. A body filled with pure, righteous energy would naturally reject demonic arts, inflicting immense suffering on its owner. Jiang screamed as agony tore through him. Out of all possible constitutions, he had inherited one fundamentally incompatible with his path. With the duel only a month away, the situation was dire. Lying there in pain, he asked about the two men present. Masach identified them as the chief steward Dakshin and the elder Zhou Huanbong. The name Zhou stirred a distant memory from Jiang's past life, but the pain was too overwhelming to dwell on it. As panic filled the room, Masach desperately begged him to stop. Inside his mind, Jiang responded coldly and resolutely. Death was not an option. 3 days later, Jiang finally rose from the place where he had been bedridden. His attendant, Sok, was immediately uneasy, believing that Jiang had not yet recovered enough to move around. However, Jiang had grown sick of lying still. With the duel rapidly approaching, rest felt like a waste of time. His first demand upon standing was for swords. Sok struggled to suppress laughter at the request. The clan was barely managing to secure food. Yet Jiang was thinking about weapons. Faced with this reaction, Jiang quickly realized that the family's financial situation was worse than he had assumed. When pressed, Sok admitted that the clan was surviving by borrowing money from an unorthodox organization known as the Bangho sect. The terms of those loans were brutal. The interest alone was enough to bury families, and the debt had already spiraled far out of control. At that moment, it became clear to Jiang that, before anything else, the clan's financial crisis needed to be addressed. Still, he saw little harm in taking on more debt when they were already drowning in it. Sok was deeply uneasy with this reasoning, but Jiang cut him off and ordered him to prepare letters for the two elders. Without further explanation, Jiang announced his intention to go for a walk. When word spread that Jiang had left the residence, the elders were struck with panic. Their fear only worsened upon learning that his destination was the Bangho sect, a place infamous for swallowing people whole. Soon after, Jiang and Sok arrived at the sect's entrance. A massive guard stood in their way. Jiang instructed him to report that he wished to meet the one in charge. The guard, Kang No, had no patience for pleasantries and assumed Jiang had come to gamble. When Jiang persisted, tension quickly escalated. Sensing danger, Sok intervened, desperately attempting to defuse the situation by explaining that Jiang was not in his right mind. Before matters could turn violent, the vice master of the Bangho sect, Ma Yongbo, appeared and demanded an explanation. After hearing that Jiang wished to meet the sect leader for additional loans, Ma dismissed the idea as unnecessary and instead invited them inside. They were escorted across a wooden bridge and deeper into the manor, surrounded by armed swordsmen at every turn. Sok grew increasingly anxious. Even now, retreat was still possible. Jiang, however, refused to turn back after coming this far. Sok then shared rumors he had heard, that the sect leader was a terrifying martial artist who had once overwhelmed a powerful opponent in mere seconds using a deadly killing technique. Ma acknowledged Sok's insight, remarking that he had noticed more than most. Unfortunately, by then, it was already too late. They had entered a secluded area, and without warning, armed men surrounded them completely. Jiang immediately understood the situation. This had been a trap from the beginning. Ma confirmed as much, explaining that while public action was impossible, this isolated location allowed him to act freely. The mercy once shown to Jiang's parents would not be extended to him. Sok abandoned any thought of argument and instead begged for Jiang's life. Hearing his parents mentioned ignited Jiang's anger, though it was accompanied by a brief, jarring realization that those parents belonged to this body, not his original self. With everything in place, Ma ordered his men to strike. One of the fighters lunged forward, throwing a powerful punch. Sok nearly collapsed from fear. To his shock, Jiang intercepted the blow effortlessly. The attacker's bones shattered from the inside, and he collapsed screaming, convinced that some trick had been used against him. Jiang quickly understood that brute force was not an option. His body lacked raw power, so he adapted. Ma grew furious at his men's incompetence and ordered them to finish the job. A swordsman charged in next. Personally, Jiang could not understand why such hostility was being directed at him, when his only intention was to speak with the sect leader. Ma made it clear that someone like Jiang was unworthy of such a meeting. Drawing his sword, Ma attacked without hesitation. In a shocking twist, Jiang blocked the strike using a pair of chopsticks, the only weapons he could obtain due to his lack of funds. The two clashed repeatedly. Despite the absurdity of his weapon, Jiang held his ground with astonishing technique. In a brief opening, he drove a chopstick straight through Ma's hand. The Vice Master was stunned. Despite unleashing everything he had still been outmaneuvered. As Ma struggled, Jiang fought with unsettling ease, treating the exchange almost like amusement. He made it painfully clear that underestimating simple tools could be fatal. The realization that he was being dominated by chopsticks shattered Ma's confidence completely. Ma could not accept defeat in such a humiliating manner. Gathering his strength, he leapt into the air, preparing his ultimate technique. Yet Jiang showed no fear. He evaded the attack effortlessly, leaving Ma wide open. Precise and absolute, it crushed what little pride Ma had left. Fear finally overtook him. Jiang made his intention unmistakably clear. All he wanted was to be left alone. This time, the message carried a chilling finality, etched into Ma's mind by Jiang's terrifying expression. In another part of the scene, Hua Jin appears thoroughly entertained by the unfolding chaos. He watches with clear amusement, remarking internally that it has been a long time since anything has brought him this much enjoyment. Nearby, Ma Yongbo's men remain tightly bound, completely powerless. Masuk struggles to stop Zhang Chan from consuming something dangerous, clearly worried about the effect it could have on his health. Meanwhile, Jiang begins pressing Ma Yongbo for answers. He finds it suspicious that someone as greedy and calculating as Ma Yongbo would willingly support the Yum Hua clan without demanding any collateral. To Jiang, the situation reeks of corruption. Ma Yongbo attempts to deny any malicious intent, but Jiang immediately sees through him, mocking how transparent his thoughts are as panic churns in his mind. Jiang then escalates the pressure. He grabs a handful of dice and uses them as a threat, making it clear that swallowing them would permanently rob Ma Yongbo of the ability to speak. Faced with this terrifying prospect, Ma Yongbo finally breaks. He confesses that the Changhua Merchant Guild orchestrated everything behind the scenes. Jiang is not surprised in the slightest, dismissing the guild as vermin and demanding to know the exact nature of their agreement. When Ma Yongbo hesitates, Jiang makes it clear that he is neither a monk bound by mercy nor a warrior shackled by honor. He reminds Ma Yongbo that loyalty to distant merchants means nothing, as the guild would not care if he were butchered, and his entire establishment burned to the ground. Completely shaken, Ma Yongbo reveals the truth. A secret contract existed in which the Changhua Merchant Guild ordered them to lend the Yum Hua clan unlimited funds at outrageously high interest rates, with the sole purpose of burying the clan in unpayable debt. Once the clan inevitably collapsed, the guild would seize their land and receive a massive reward. At that moment, Jiang fully understands the scheme. The clan's land was the true collateral all along. He then asks how much the 300 nyang he is borrowing today would grow after 1 year. Ma Yongbo answers that it would balloon to nearly 5,000 nyang under the contract's terms. Jiang finds this laughable and views them all as fools. Yet he proceeds with the paperwork regardless. Before leaving, Jiang presses further, asking who truly backs Bango's room. Ma Yongbo reveals that they are supported by the social faction, a branch within the unorthodox alliance known as Samikayan. Jiang silently repeats the name, immediately recognizing them as filthy scum. When Masuk reacts with surprise at Jiang's familiarity with Samikayan, Jiang dismisses the matter, seeing no point in explaining. Instead, he grows impatient, questioning why the money has not yet arrived. Soon after, a large box filled with gold is brought in. The man presenting it confirms that it contains the agreed-upon 300 nyang. Jiang inspects the coins carefully, admiring their weight and shine, and determines that the amount is sufficient. He instructs Masuk to take the money and stop hesitating so they can leave. As they depart, Jiang makes sure the lenders record the debt clearly in their ledgers. He leaves them with a chilling warning, promising to return and repay every single coin after settling matters with their friends in the Changhua Merchant Guild. He also cautions them that exploiting common people beyond a certain point will lead to a grim end. Terrified, the moneylenders hastily agree. Once Jiang leaves, Ma Yongbo mutters curses under his breath, calling him a mad young master, and vowing that time will reveal who collapses first. Back at the clan, Dubekson notices blood stains. Jiang calmly explains that the blood does not belong to him. Dubekson is stunned by what must have occurred at Bango's room, but Jiang downplays the incident, stating that he merely borrowed some money. He explains that the clan's warriors need proper food and care, and that they cannot afford to lose any more lives. The elder questions whether Jiang stole the money, arguing that Bango's room would never lend willingly. Jiang firmly reiterates that the debt was officially recorded. He then orders Elder Zhou Huanbang to focus solely on feeding and clothing the younger siblings, leaving everything else to him. As Jiang walks away, The two elders watch in silence, wondering whether such reckless madness can truly exist in the world. Later that night, Jiang stands before his parents' memorial altar. He reflects that he never truly had parents and does not know the proper words to comfort them. Even so, he reassures them that the family's financial crisis is largely resolved. From this point forward, he vows to take responsibility for his siblings and everyone under this roof. Asking his parents to rest peacefully, he then turns his thoughts to the upcoming duel against Cheong Dabo. Knowing that the clan's secret manual is on the line, he silently promises that he will crush his opponent completely. In another scene, the clan's warriors complain bitterly of exhaustion after hauling extremely heavy crates. Jiang arrives and reveals the contents: massive training swords weighing 30, 48, and 66 kilograms. He confirms that all of them are present. Masuk questions why Jiang would order such brutal equipment, when even carrying them nearly broke the warriors. Jiang's reasoning is simple. A sword exists to be swung. He decides to begin with the lightest one, the 30-kilogram blade. However, the moment he tries to lift it, reality hits hard. He struggles immensely, barely managing to move it at all. Masuk watches in disbelief as Jiang attempts to wield something so heavy. Jiang feels a surge of frustration. He expected difficulty, but not to this extent. Unable to lift even the lightest sword properly, he curses his weak body. Still, he refuses to give up. With both hands and every ounce of strength he has, he finally manages to lift the sword slightly off the ground. Gasping for breath as exhaustion sets in, he then orders Masuk to stop staring and carry out his instructions, specifically to add meat to his meals from now on. As time passes, only 15 days remain until the duel. Jiang comes to a crucial realization. His body now possesses an orthodox heavenly constitution, the complete opposite of the demonic techniques once forced upon him by his master. This leaves him with only one viable path forward. He must master the 9 swords of solitude, a sword technique passed down from his master's close brother. To Jiang, this is the only way he can survive what lies ahead. Elsewhere, news of the incident reaches Cheong Dabo. He struggles to believe that Huamujin managed to cripple the Bango Chen gang. His subordinate confirms the report, adding that they will be unable to operate for at least 2 weeks. Debo finds the situation puzzling, especially since Huamujin possesses no internal energy. A slow, amused smile spreads across Debo's face. He concludes that a thoroughbred remains a thoroughbred, no matter the circumstances. Deciding it is time to act, he orders preparations for a gift to be sent to young Master Hua. His excitement for the upcoming duel grows, eager to witness every hidden trick Huamujin has yet to reveal. The scene shifts back to Jiang as he throws himself into merciless training. He drives his fists and legs forward again and again, striking the air without pause, determined to carve martial discipline into his fragile body. In his mind, a body blessed by the heavens should be capable of enduring suffering of this magnitude. Once he confirms that Masuk has prepared everything he requested, Jiang declares that the true training is only beginning. He starts with the first form of the 9 swords of solitude, the blade of advancement. Its philosophy is absolute forward momentum, the idea that nothing, not even Mount Tai itself, should be able to halt one's advance. Without rest, he transitions into the second form, the shattering blade, built on the principle that any weapon standing in its path must be broken apart. The strain quickly begins to wear down his already weak body, yet Jiang refuses to stop. He kicks a ball with such force that it ricochets wildly around the training ground, using the motion to practice the third form, the heaven-slicing blade. This form embodies the belief that even attacks capable of shaking the heavens will be cleaved apart before this sword. Sweat pours from his body as his breathing grows ragged. A sharp pain shoots through his back, but instead of stopping, he roars inwardly and forces himself onward. Refusing to acknowledge the pain, Jiang moves into the fourth form, the blade of disassembly. Its core idea is that no stance, no defense, and no knee can endure it, because even the most intricate techniques possess weaknesses that can be severed by a simple strike. Despite repeated attempts, he fails to hit any of his intended targets. Frustration mounts as he struggles to cut falling logs, prompting him to abandon the attempt and press on to the fifth form. The fifth technique, the army-slicing blade, is founded on the belief that even if entire legions descend upon him, they will be forced to kneel, for numbers hold no meaning before true power. He continues relentlessly, until a falling log strikes him squarely on the head. Anger flares, and instead of retreating, he demands more from himself and advances to the next stage. The sixth form, the blade that splits the moon, requires cutting candles without extinguishing their flames. Its principle states that even the moon itself would be split apart before this sword. From there, Jiang advances to the seventh form, the blade that cleaves the great earth, which teaches that the earth itself will open a path before the sword, and once it is cut, size and scale lose all relevance. Jiang can hardly believe that his body remains intact after such abuse. Still, he presses on to the eighth form, the heavens-shattering blade. Its philosophy declares that even the heavens will split before this strike, and that nothing in existence lies beyond its reach. At last, he reaches the ninth and final form, severance, also known as the blade of finality. This form teaches that once one has cut both oneself and one's sword, there is no longer any reason to continue holding a blade at all. As Jiang pauses, his mind fills with doubt. He wonders whether his training amounts to nothing more than blind imitation. His thoughts drift back to the past, to the days when his master taught him this final form. He remembers questioning its worth, dismissing it as incomplete and undeserving of being called a true sword art. The descriptions had seemed exaggerated and childish, filled with claims of cutting the earth, the sky, and even oneself. His new master never denied those criticisms, but instead questioned whether his friend's legacy should truly end that way. Unable to carry it on himself, he insisted that Jiang inherit it. That master revealed a crucial truth. The creator of this sword art was the only swordsman who could stand on equal footing with him. Yet the creator possessed no internal energy at all. Instead, he relied on Donggong, a martial discipline considered crude and inferior, focused solely on strengthening the body through physical repetition. When Jiang scoffed at the idea, his master struck him on the forehead, and understanding finally dawned. The explanation continued. Repeating the sword movements 1,000 times would alter the body itself. Repeating them 100,000 times would give rise to a sword aura. Repeating them 1,000,000 times would grant invincibility across all lands. Jiang remembered asking whether the creator of the art was truly his master's equal. The answer had been uncertain, but one thing was clear: if they ever fought, one of them would die back in the present. As Jiang contemplates the terrifying legacy of this art, Masuk calls out to him in panic. Jiang has collapsed, having fainted mid-training. Masuk desperately slaps his face to wake him. Fearing the worst, when Jiang finally stirs, Masuk's worry is evident, as Jiang had not responded at all. Jiang weakly threatens retaliation if Masuk dares strike him again. Confused, Jiang wonders how he could lose consciousness after only a single set of movements. The realization that he still has an immense road ahead weighs heavily on him. Masuk suggests that he eat, noting how late it has become. During the meal, Jiang is surprised to see pork on the table. Masuk reminds him that he personally ordered meat the previous day, and urges him to enjoy it, pointing out how rare such a meal has become. Jiang then orders that beef be prepared from the next day onward, explaining that it is better for building muscle. This decision shocks Masuk. Jiang tells him not to worry about expenses and insists they use the borrowed money. From now until the duel, he intends to eat meat for all 3 meals every day. Masuk asks how long Jiang has been learning such martial arts. Jiang answers indirectly, acknowledging that the change must seem strange. He admits that it is indeed unusual for someone who once barely behaved like a normal human to suddenly dedicate himself to martial training. Masuk adds that it is astonishing how Jiang defeated the men of Bango's room with nothing but a chopstick, and is now practicing such a fearsome sword art. Jiang jokingly claims an identity far greater than Hua Jin, but Masuk cuts him off, telling him to stop the nonsense. Then Masuk voices his true fear. He worries that Jiang might lose his memories again, become someone else entirely, or vanish one day. He asks whether Jiang plans to abandon the Yum Hua clan. Jiang reassures him firmly. He promises that he will never abandon the clan, at least not until it rises to become the greatest martial family in all of Sichuan. Masuk is left stunned by the sheer scale of this ambition. Jiang promptly knocks him on the head and orders him to leave. Left alone, Jiang reflects that achieving this goal would also bring peace to the spirit of the true Hua Mujin. Elsewhere, the two elders discuss the duel set to take place in 10 days. Dubexin believes Chang Dao will undoubtedly attempt to kill young Master Hua and seize the legacy of the Flame Emperor. Zhou Huanbong argues that they should flee before that happens, insisting that they cannot allow the last 2 remaining members of the family to come to harm. Jiang continues to push himself through relentless training. After swinging a sword day after day without rest, his arms finally begin to show signs of real strength. He can now wield a 66-kilogram iron sword with a single hand. Even so, something still feels incomplete, as his sword forms remain unstable despite the physical progress. With 1 week remaining before the duel, his 2 younger siblings come to see him while he is training. Jiang urges them to leave, knowing how dangerous the training ground can be, but they refuse. They admit that they have been worried after watching him push himself beyond his limits for days on end. His sister, So Yan, hesitantly brings up the cruel words she once spoke, accusing him of being responsible for their parents' deaths. She admits that she had spoken out of anger, and regret weighs heavily on her. Jiang lets out a quiet sigh. Every time he looks at the two of them, memories of children from his previous life resurface in his mind. After reassuring them that he is fine, his younger brother, Dajin, begins copying Jiang's fighting stance with wide-eyed admiration. So Yan steps in to correct her brother, noting that Jiang's arms are held more fully extended. Jiang watches the two of them with a soft smile, touched by their innocence as they clumsily imitate his movements. The sight pulls him back into an old memory from his former life. When he trained under his master, he recalls how his master emphasized the importance of breathing in the doggo sword style. A long exhale accompanied each swing, followed by patience and restraint, and then a slow, brief inhale when returning to the ready stance. Back then, Jiang had learned that the true essence of the doggo sword was not the sharpness of its blade, but the breathing that animated every movement. Standing in the present, Jiang realizes that he had forgotten those crucial teachings. He reassures his siblings once more, promising that he will win the upcoming duel regardless of the cost, and sends them back to their room. As they leave, the two children exchange worried glances, uncertain whether everything will truly be all right. Jiang returns to his training with renewed focus. This time he consciously applies the breathing method he had remembered, a long exhale, no rushing, and then a brief inhale. As he practices the fifth form, known as the slaughter form, he concentrates on releasing all the internal energy gathered within his body into a single strike. This time he executes the technique flawlessly. He comes to understand that Dong Gong, also known as moving meditation, is a form of Sheng that builds internal energy through continuous motion. Unlike other methods, it is considered a low-level martial art because it does little to expand energy pathways. However, it proves easier to master than he once thought, as it relies primarily on stable, controlled breathing. Jiang notices that synchronizing his breath with his sword movements has gradually stabilized his body. Where sword training once felt chaotic and painful, it now begins to flow naturally. After repeating the movements dozens of times, the scattered energy that had accumulated in his body over many years slowly begins to condense. Later, Zhou Huanbong asks Masuk whether Jiang has continued training. Masuk excitedly explains the astonishing changes, noting that Jiang used to collapse frequently, yet now shows no signs of weakness and feels like a completely different person. Masuk attributes this transformation to the immortal Kai treatment Jiang once received. Zhou Huanbong, however, finds this explanation difficult to accept, as no treatment should be capable of producing such rapid recovery. He instructs Masuk to inform him immediately if anything urgent occurs. Masuk agrees and rushes off. Carrying a meal for Jiang, Masuk freezes in shock upon reaching the training ground. The area has been utterly destroyed, and at its center stands Jiang, radiating an overwhelming aura. Masuk stares at the devastation, unable to comprehend what could have happened. Jiang casually complains that the space has become too small for proper training, and declares that he will be using the Grand Training Hall from now on. When Jiang arrives at the Grand Training Hall, where the clan's warriors are practicing, he immediately notices that others are present. Masuk timidly steps forward and informs the warriors that the young master intends to use the hall, which takes them by surprise. Jiang addresses them directly, explaining that he must train alone and requires a large amount of space, so he will be borrowing the hall and asks them to move to another nearby training ground. One of the warriors scoffs at him, mocking him as a half-dead corpse and dismissing his words as nonsense. The man sneers that merely swinging a sword does not make someone a warrior, especially when that blade has never tasted blood. Jiang notices the defiant glint in the warrior's eyes as the provocation continues. Before the situation escalates further, the captain of the guard, Bo, steps in and orders the warriors to stand down, affirming that young Master Hua is legitimately practicing martial arts. Still, the rebellious warrior mutters under his breath, claiming that the young master's madness has returned. Jiang halts the captain and confronts the warrior directly, demanding that any objections be spoken openly, instead of whispered like a coward. When Bo questions his intent, Jiang makes it clear that disagreements between warriors should be settled through combat. The captain attempts to intervene once more, insisting that no warrior is permitted to draw a blade against the heir of the family. Jiang responds with a sharp proverb, implying that true war dogs do not bark, while those who bark are driven by fear. He then turns his challenge toward Bo, daring him to stop barking and either step forward to fight or continue living in cowardice. Enraged, Bo draws his sword, convinced that Jiang will come to regret his words. Jiang answers with cold certainty, unmoved by the threat, as he makes it clear that regret has never been part of his nature. The battle begins, and the surrounding warriors are immediately caught off guard when they realize that Jiang has stepped into the fight without a sword. Moving in an unfamiliar and unconventional manner, he evades every incoming strike with ease, weaving through attacks so effortlessly that frustration builds among his opponents. This prompts the guard captain to demand that Jiang stop avoiding blows and confront him properly with a weapon. Jiang accepts the challenge, while the captain reflects bitterly on his 25 years of service to the Manhwa clan. As the guard captain, Bo, attacks, his mind fills with resentment. He believes the young master Hua has long been the root of the clan's decline, and finds it absurd that only now Jiang has begun speaking of martial discipline. Fueled by this belief, Bo launches his assault. Jiang responds by employing the second form of the 9 Swords of Solitude, the extinguishing blow, effortlessly neutralizing the strike. The captain is stunned, sensing his internal energy being disturbed by a technique he does not recognize. Jiang openly acknowledges the truth in Bo's accusations, but immediately follows with a powerful uppercut that crashes into the captain's face. He makes it clear through his actions that the old order is ending, and that change begins now. Bo notices the transformation in Jiang's eyes, which no longer carry their former dullness, but instead shine with the unwavering resolve of a true warrior. In the next moment, Jiang defeats the guard captain, leaving the onlookers in shock as they struggle to comprehend how the once-mad young master achieved such a victory. The warriors rush to Bo's side to check on him. Jiang stands over the fallen captain, silently asserting his dominance. When another warrior protests, claiming the fight was unfair, Bo silences him himself. He then lowers himself to his knees, acknowledging his defeat and admitting that he has learned something significant. Jiang allows him to withdraw, and Bo formally pledges his loyalty. Following this, the guard captain orders the warriors to clear the hall and relocate their training elsewhere. Jiang also instructs Masuk to leave, choosing to remain alone in the grand training hall. From a distance, one of the warriors questions Bo about his decision to yield, but the captain insists that he fought with full sincerity. He vehemently denies retreating, still unable to fully grasp how Jiang had changed so drastically. Ultimately, Bo concludes that the young master has gained some extraordinary opportunity, and believes that, with this change, the future of the clan might not be entirely bleak. On the night before the duel with the Chunwa Merchant Guild, the elders Dubekson and Huanbong sit together in solemn conversation. One asks how long they have served the clan, and the other recalls that nearly 37 years have passed. They reminisce about Master Yonge of Huaju Peak, whose presence once commanded awe, even forcing the proud Tang clan to acknowledge his martial might. Dubekson reminds Huanbong of the oath they swore to devote their lives to him out of gratitude. Huanbong accuses Dubekson of preparing to betray that oath. Dubekson denies any betrayal, arguing that the master's bloodline and legacy must survive. Regardless of the form it takes, Huanbong reflects on the 17 years they spent caring for Jiang during his madness. All while witnessing the slow collapse of the Manhwa clan, he believes that even if they were to face Master Yonge in the afterlife, they would not be condemned for their choices. He then asks whether everything is prepared for their departure. Dubekson confirms that little remains to be done, some gold for resettlement, a few loyal warriors, and 4 command plaques. He urges Huanbong to leave first, explaining that he will stay behind. Despite everything, Jiang is still of that man's lineage, and someone must remain to look after his body. Dubekson also reveals that a master hired by the Chunwa Merchant Guild will attend the duel as a witness, a move he sees as an attempt to legitimize their plunder. He knows such people will leave nothing behind, not even grass. He instructs Huanbong to wait at the agreed location, noting that the 2 children will already be distressed enough. Elsewhere, Jiang complains about the toughness of the meat he has been eating lately. Masuk explains that cheap cuts are always like that. Jiang wonders aloud whether they have already run out of money, and Masuk admits he has no idea, as the head steward provides them with very little. Masuk jokingly asks whether the meat was stolen, which Jiang dismisses, questioning instead why Masuk once suggested running away and earned himself a slap for it. As preparations for the duel continue, Jiang asks Masuk for his opinion on his appearance. Masuk bluntly thinks he looked better when covered in bandages. Jiang ignores the remark and decides it is time to depart. As he moves to leave, Dubekson appears and questions whether he truly intends to go. Jiang responds with sarcasm, assuming Dubekson has come to suggest fleeing as well. Dubekson denies this and insists on accompanying him. Jiang finds the constant concern exhausting and complains about the excessive worry of old men. With unwavering confidence, he declares that he will crush their enemies regardless and orders everyone to set out. The following morning, the arena is overflowing with people. Spectators gather in massive numbers, some driven by curiosity about the duel, others focus solely on gambling. Because of the overwhelmingly high odds placed on Mugen, most bettors confidently place their money on him. Soon after, Mugen arrives at the arena with lollipops casually hanging from his mouth. The sight immediately causes murmurs in the crowd, with many spectators dismissing him as frail and unserious. Some even regret placing their bets and consider backing out entirely. When Mugen steps into the arena, he encounters Jiang, who appears to question whether Mugen truly intends to proceed with the duel. Overhearing this exchange, the spectators assume that Mugen himself initiated the duel despite his obvious weakness, reinforcing their belief that his long-standing madness has only worsened. Mugen becomes furious upon realizing that public opinion has already turned against him, and that the merchant group is being framed as the wronged party. He resolves to make them pay for this narrative. Mugen makes it clear through his actions that he has no intention of allowing his clan's secret manual to be taken, and that this duel is unavoidable for that very reason. The crowd reacts with shock, as few ever imagined that a merchant organization would dare set its sights on a martial arts secret technique. Shin, on the other hand, remains completely assured of the outcome. From her perspective, Mugen is merely posturing, and she believes he will pay dearly for overestimating himself. With all preparations completed, the duel is officially set in motion. The host announces that the witness of the duel will be Hanyang of the Kangdang sect. Hanyang stands calmly on the balcony, exuding confidence and authority, as he prepares to uphold his master's will and oversee the match fairly before the assembled crowd. At that moment, Jiang makes a surprising revelation, revealing that the martial outfit Mugen is wearing was personally sent by him as a commemorative gift celebrating Mugen's return. Mugen responds with calm confidence and draws out an enormous sword, making it clear that any remaining matters will be settled after the duel concludes. The crowd is stunned, as none of them have ever seen someone enter a duel wielding such a massive blade. This shock is amplified by the fact that the Flame Emperor is widely known for bare-handed combat rather than swordsmanship. Even Du is taken aback and quietly checks with Sok to see whether Mugen had shown any unusual behavior beforehand. Initially, both Du and Sok had advised Mugen to flee, believing he stood no chance against his opponent. However, Sok begins to feel a growing sense of confidence in Mugen, sensing that he may actually stand a chance. Du, however, remains unconvinced and firmly believes defeat is inevitable. Once both sides are prepared, the referee signals the start of the duel. Mugen immediately charges forward, unleashing a ferocious swing of his massive sword. Jiang narrowly avoids the strike, but the ground struck by the blade is violently shattered. The spectators are left speechless, having never expected Mugen to move with such speed and overwhelming power. Until now, everyone believed Mugen lacked any real martial ability. Yet his movements defy all expectations. Even Jiang is shaken, having anticipated an effortless victory. Mugen presses the attack relentlessly, charging again and swinging his sword with brutal force. Jiang manages to block one of the blows, and the two clash head-on, their weapons colliding with a thunderous sound that sends shockwaves through the arena. The spectacle leaves the crowd in awe. Shin is surprised that Mugen is holding his ground far better than she anticipated, though she still believes that no amount of training could bridge the gap between him and Jiang. As the duel continues, Mugen keeps up his relentless assault, while Jiang relies on his flexibility to evade the massive blade. Eventually, Jiang finds an opening and lands a counterattack that sends Mugen flying backward. Jiang believes he has the ability to completely crush Mugen's resolve and intends to leave him in a worse state than before. From the balcony, Du admits his surprise at how well Mugen is enduring the fight. Sok adds that Mugen has not yet revealed his true trump card. Du dismisses this as nonsense, but Sok insists, revealing that he secretly observed Mugen's solitary training and is certain that something far more dangerous is yet to come. As the clash drags on, Mugen realizes that his current strength is nearly equal to Jiang's, which causes him to reflect on the effectiveness of his training. Despite this realization, he feels no fear. No matter how strong his opponent may be, Mugen believes victory is inevitable. This time, he has no intention of merely winning. He intends to kill Jiang. At the same time, Zhou is transporting Mugen's younger siblings. By the time he reaches his destination, the children are fast asleep. Along the way, his thoughts drift back to what Du had told him earlier, that he would not be coming yet because he intended to remain behind and collect whatever might be left of Mujin after Jiang killed him. Zhou is uncertain whether their actions are truly right, but he consoles himself with the fact that their plan is already in motion. Back at the arena, the duel shows no sign of slowing. Mujin remains calm and unshaken, convinced that Jiang is nothing more than an inexperienced fighter compared to himself. The two continue exchanging blows, their clash appearing evenly matched on the surface. Even so, some observers begin to feel that Mujin may actually be gaining the upper hand. As the fight drags on, murmurs spread through the crowd, with some spectators dismissing Mujin as unimpressive and questioning the hype surrounding him. That skepticism vanishes in an instant when Jiang unleashes a devastating attack aimed directly at Mujin. Watching from above, Du and Sok nearly lose consciousness as the strike heads straight toward him, leaving them able to do nothing but hope Mujin can evade it. Sensing that Jiang has begun to see through him, Mujin activates the first form of the Peerless Nine Swords, the preemptive step. Although Jiang's attack lands, Mujin manages to block it through the technique, sending shockwaves through the crowd. Even Jiang is forced backward in disbelief. Realizing that Mujin has entered a dangerous state, Jiang begins gathering his inner energy for a decisive blow. Mujin, however, shows no concern and instead presses forward, activating the second form of his technique. He charges with overwhelming killing intent, closing the distance in an instant. Jiang can feel the pressure bearing down on him and barely manages to block the incoming strike, though confusion fills him as he struggles to comprehend how he is being pushed back by Mujin. Jiang pours every ounce of strength into his defense, but it is not enough. His sword suddenly shatters before his eyes. Mujin's blade cuts straight through, dealing a catastrophic blow. Jiang is hurled to the ground as Shin cries out in despair. He lies motionless in a pool of blood, his right arm severed, and the duel is decided in Mujin's favor. Mujin calmly approaches the severed arm, declaring through his actions that he will take it as compensation for the 17 years of hatred he has endured. Shin is left stunned, while Mujin shows no concern, believing the merchant group may still find a way to reattach it. Han leaps down from his vantage point to examine Jiang. With Shin rushing in behind him, Han quickly realizes that Jiang's energy core has also been destroyed. Han fixes his gaze on Mujin, questioning whether such an outcome was truly necessary. Mujin responds with apparent indifference, while Han reflects that the gap between them had been clear long before the fight reached this point. Mujin's fury finally surfaces as he recalls the cruelty inflicted upon a defenseless 5-year-old child who had possessed no martial skill at all. To him, what just occurred is not excess. It is the long-awaited conclusion of a 17-year vendetta. He makes it clear that this is only the beginning of repayment for everything done to the Hua clan, urging Han and his followers to prepare themselves for what is to come. Overcome with pain and rage, Shin collapses to her knees, vowing never to forget this humiliation. As Mujin leaves the stage, the arena erupts in cheers. The spectators are exhilarated by how decisively he crushed Jiang, and many realize they have just witnessed a sword and a level of skill unlike anything seen before. Excitement spreads through the crowd as they become convinced that a new martial arts master has been born. Du and Sok hurry to Mujin's side, and he signals that it is time to return home. As he walks away, he suddenly pauses and turns back, checking whether all the gold he had entrusted to Du has been spent. Du responds nervously, indicating that a small amount still remains. Mujin then considers that he may need to visit the Bangho sect to borrow more funds. His demeanor shifts as he issues a silent but unmistakable warning. He does not care if Du, Zhou, or the other martial artists choose to leave, but there will be severe consequences if anyone attempts to take his siblings away from him. The killing intent radiating from him is so intense that it nearly paralyzes Du where he stands. Elsewhere, Mujin's siblings awaken and angrily protest to Zhou for taking them away when they were supposed to be watching their brother's duel. Zhou's heart sinks when a pigeon arrives carrying a letter. Reading it, he realizes everything has gone terribly wrong. Mujin has won. The message warns that their actions have been discovered and urges him to return to the house immediately. Without wasting a moment, Zhou mounts his horse and begins the journey back in a state of fear and panic. Behind him, the children cheer excitedly, eager to return and see their brother again, completely unaware of the storm that now awaits them. Sometime later, Mujin informs Di that the moment has come to deal with the Bangho sect, telling him there is no need to worry about anything else. Although Mujin is now widely recognized as someone with real strength, Du still advises him not to involve himself with the social sect under any circumstances. Mujin quickly realizes that the old man is simply overthinking the situation and reassures him before setting off. Sok, however, is deeply uneasy, fearing that the situation could spiral out of control. Mujin insists that he can no longer afford delays and tells Sok to stay close behind him as they move out. Before long, Mujin arrives at the Bangho sect, a sight that leaves Ma completely stunned, as he never imagined Mujin would return alive. Mujin makes it clear that he has come to settle old debts and mocks the sect for its empty, lifeless appearance. Ma attempts to hide the sect's decline by claiming that most of the gamblers in the region had temporarily left to watch Mujin's duel. Hearing this, Mujin immediately deduces that betting pools must have been held on the match, and that the sect likely made a fortune by giving him unfavorable odds. From the moment this realization sets in, Mujin's interest sharpens, and Ma understands that Mujin intends to squeeze them dry. Sensing danger, Ma quickly tries to appease him by offering gratitude in the form of compensation. Mujin is clearly pleased, as money is something he never refuses. At the same time, Ma feels a chilling pressure radiating from Mujin, an aura thick with killing intent that makes it difficult to breathe. Mujin then demands to know the whereabouts of the sect's true leader, shocking Ma and leaving him scrambling for answers. When Ma hesitates, Mujin's patience snaps, and his fury threatens to erupt. Before matters escalate further, the Bangho sect's leader, Shinjil, enters the room. Mujin is taken aback by the man's grotesque appearance, realizing that this unsightly figure is the one truly in charge. Shinjil admits that he has already been informed about Mujin, while Mujin openly mocks him, questioning why someone like him is so difficult to meet. Standing behind Shinjil is a man emanating overwhelming malice. Mujin quickly identifies him as Death Black Crow, a notorious enforcer of the social sect. Black Crow immediately reprimands Mujin for coveting their money, making it clear that Mujin has crossed into forbidden territory by confronting the social sect. Mujin shows no fear and treats the warning as meaningless, making it obvious that he does not intend to back down. Enraged, Black Crow lunges forward, terrifying Sok, but Mujin senses no real threat. With effortless precision, Mujin flicks a chopstick through the air, driving it straight through Black Crow's hand. In that instant, Black Crow realizes that Mujin is far from ordinary, and that underestimating him was a fatal mistake. Rather than backing off, Black Crow attacks again in fury. This time, Mujin moves to meet him head-on, suddenly vanishing mid-charge and reappearing behind him. Black Crow desperately lashes out, but Mujin evades every strike with ease, clearly playing with him. The realization that someone so young can completely dominate him shatters Black Crow's confidence. Mujin then drives the chopstick into Black Crow's left eye, unleashing screams of agony that echo through the room. Black Crow collapses, cursing Mujin and threatening retaliation from the social sect. Mujin responds with cold indifference, daring the social sect to come after him while crushing Black Crow further. He makes it clear that Black Crow will not leave the room alive. Faced with death, Black Crow abandons all pride and begs for mercy, offering his wealth in exchange for his life. Mujin is mildly surprised by his desperation, but pauses when wealth is mentioned. Black Crow claims that all his assets are stored in Chang and swears to retrieve them. Mujin accepts the deal, warning that failure to return will mean certain death. Overwhelmed by fear, Black Crow flees in a panic, promising to return as quickly as possible. With Black Crow gone, Mujin turns his attention to Shinjil, who is already trembling uncontrollably. Mujin makes it clear that their debt must now be settled. Shinjil immediately collapses, begging for mercy and offering everything he owns. Mujin laughs at the display, pointing out that Shinjil has nothing left to offer, as his assets already belong to him. Confused, Shinjil listens as Mujin lays out the true cost of his crimes, the wealth extorted from commoners, and the countless lives destroyed by manipulating martial clans. Even through tears, Shinjil agrees to surrender everything. This only enrages Mujin further, and without hesitation, he crushes Shinjil's skull, ending his life and reminding everyone that one cannot offer what has already been taken. Terror spreads through the remaining sect members. Mujin calmly surveys them and demands to know who stands next in the chain of command. Ma steps forward, identifying himself as the vice sect leader, and immediately drops to his knees. He pleads for his life, promising to live honestly if spared. Sensing genuine fear and submission, Mujin chooses to let him live. Mujin then orders Ma to report the full value of Shinjil's assets. Ma lists the estate, gold reserves, Bangho's holdings, and tributes from the Soul sect, totaling well over 20,000 gold. Mujin claims all of it without hesitation and orders Ma to prepare everything at once. Relieved to be alive, Ma agrees and leaves to carry out the task. Once Ma departs, Mujin turns his gaze on the remaining officers with lethal intent and tells them that their lives are now under negotiation. Panic erupts as they realize Ma was the only one promised mercy. They fall into desperate pleas, but their fate is sealed. Not long after, Mujin returns home with several large boxes filled with gold and treasures, leaving Dee utterly stunned. Each box contains hundreds of gold coins, confirming the massive haul. Du warns that the Bangho sect was backed by the Soul sect, but the real danger lies in their powerful allies, including a terrifying figure named Huang, along with the Black Crow and the Red Crow. When Black Crow is mentioned, Mujin casually reveals that he has already dealt with him, shocking Du to the core. Mujin makes it clear that no one should ever compare him to Dee or Zhou again, declaring that anyone who threatens the clan will be buried without exception. Afterward, Mujin orders food to be prepared, specifically demanding beef, and ensures that his siblings will be well fed upon their return. As he walks away, Du is left in disbelief, realizing that Mujin has already instilled fear in Black Crow, a man once feared across the entire region. It finally sinks in that Mujin is no longer the person he once knew. Elsewhere, Choyin quietly sets her own plan into motion. She hires assassins with orders to destroy everything Mujin holds dear, but with one specific command: at least one of the children must be brought back alive. In the past, the Flame Hua clan stood at the height of the martial world. Their rise was driven by a legendary figure known as the Flame Emperor, a man whose presence alone drew the attention of countless martial artists. Wherever he went, eyes followed. His strength and reputation were so great that even the prestigious Tang clan of Sichuan openly praised him. Within a single generation, the Flame Hua clan transformed into a true martial clan, one that no one dared to overlook. Even martial artists who stood at the peak of cultivation thought carefully before provoking them. During that era, whenever members of the Flame Hua clan walked through the streets of Xichang, the people greeted them with loud cheers and admiration. However, everything changed after the Flame Emperor's death. The patriarch who succeeded him proved utterly incompetent, and under his leadership, the clan began to fall apart. Loyal followers gradually distanced themselves, leaving one after another as the clan's influence weakened. Over time, the Flame Emperor's legacy became fragmented, remembered by some, forgotten by others. Still, one truth remained unshaken: he had been an extraordinary man. Because of the overwhelming presence Mujin now carried when he moved, the elders found themselves unconsciously comparing him to the late Flame Emperor. Not long after these thoughts surfaced, injured warriors suddenly arrived with urgent news. They reported that they had been ambushed by assassins, and that only Elder Zhou and a handful of warriors were still holding the enemy back. The moment Jiang heard this, he immediately realized the danger facing the two children. Without hesitation, he ordered the warriors to inform Mujin at once while he rushed ahead himself. Deep within the forest, Elder Zhou stood his ground, surrounded by fallen warriors. Though vastly outnumbered and gravely threatened, he remained resolute, prepared to give his life if it meant protecting the children. Just as the assassins were about to overwhelm him completely, Jiang arrived in time and joined the fight. The assassins were infuriated by this interruption. Their mission had been on the verge of success before Jiang appeared. Their leader ordered his men to eliminate both defenders, and the battle intensified. Jiang managed to exchange several blows with the attackers, but his age soon began to betray him. The assassins gradually gained the upper hand, and Jiang was slashed across the shoulder, forcing him backward. One of the assassins seized the opportunity and pushed Jiang onto the defensive, instructing his allies to finish the children. Despite his injuries, Jiang refused to retreat. However, moments later, he was struck again, this time suffering a severe wound that sent him crashing to the ground, completely unable to protect himself or the children any longer. With Jiang incapacitated, the assassins turned their attention to the siblings. As they assessed which child to kill, Dajin stepped forward despite his helplessness, placing himself between his sister and death. Even knowing he stood no chance, he refused to move. The assassins chose him as their target. Just as the killing blow was about to fall, Mujin's voice thundered through the forest. He appeared in an instant, charging forward with terrifying speed, his presence oppressive and menacing. The assassins showed no fear at first, dismissing him as the same worthless figure he had once been known as. The assassin leader ordered his men to eliminate Mujin as well. One attacker rushed forward, only to become the first outlet for Mujin's fury. Mujin shattered the man's sword effortlessly before unleashing a devastating vertical strike that split him apart. Without slowing down, Mujin surged toward the remaining assassins. Realizing the danger, the leader commanded everyone to attack together. They swarmed Mujin, but before they could reach him, he activated the fifth form of the Peerless Nine Swords, the Army Slayer technique. In an instant, the battlefield was carved apart, the assassins falling as if made of paper. One tried to catch Mugen off guard, but Mugen dodged with ease and took the man's head in a single motion. At that moment, the lone surviving assassin finally understood that they were facing a monster. Before he could react, his right arm was severed, and he collapsed in agony. Mugen spared him only long enough to warn him not to make another move if he wished to live. Turning away, Mugen saw Elder Zhou helping Jiang to his feet, while Dajin gently covered his sister's eyes to shield her from the blood-soaked scene. Dajin reassured her that there was nothing to fear anymore, as Mugen had arrived and defeated all the bad men. Mugen approached the siblings and checked on their condition. Dajin confirmed that they were unharmed. Though shaken, Mugen acknowledged the fear they must have felt, only for Dajin to clarify that he had stood firm, because he was the son of a martial master. Hearing this, Mugen felt a sense of relief and gently patted the boy's head, praising his courage. Mugen then instructed Elder Zhou to escort the wounded warriors and the children back to the estate. Once they departed, Mugen turned his attention back to the last surviving assassin. He warned the man to remain silent about his severed arm, before questioning him about the mastermind behind the attack. Under pressure, the assassin eventually confessed that the operation had been commissioned by the Changhua merchant group through the Death Forest faction, with Chun as the one who issued the order. After revealing everything he knew, the assassin asked if Mugen truly intended to spare him. Instead of answering directly, Mugen ordered him to return to Chun. He was to deliver a message that the group sent after Mugen's siblings had been completely wiped out, and that Mugen himself would soon come to personally claim her life. Later that day, all attention naturally shifted toward Jiang as he walked through the streets, his body drenched in blood from head to toe. Those who had once mocked or dismissed him no longer dared to look down on him, unwilling to risk becoming another silent corpse left in his wake. Whispers spread quickly, with many wondering whether the prodigy they remembered from his childhood had finally returned. After allowing his presence to fully sink into the streets and gathering enough attention, Jiang eventually made his way back to the estate. Masak rushed forward to greet him, only to have his enthusiasm brushed aside. Jiang immediately checked on the condition of the injured warriors, and was informed that they were all receiving treatment in the medicine hall. Masak also reported that Dajin and his sister were resting safely in their rooms to recover their strength. Hearing this brought Jiang visible relief, and he ordered a bath to be prepared. Soon after, Jiang immersed himself in the steaming water. As the blood washed away, his thoughts drifted to his siblings. He felt a deep desire to shield them from the ugliness and cruelty of the world. Despite being born into a martial clan, he believed it was wrong for children their age to witness such brutality. At the same time, a quiet concern gnawed at him, wondering whether his protectiveness stemmed more from his own past fears than from genuine necessity. The following day, Jiang arrived at the medicine hall and approached Elder Zhou to inquire about the Red Flame art manual. The request caught the elder off guard, and Jiang quickly noticed the unease behind his reaction. It became clear that Zhou feared Jiang might relapse and lose control as he once had. Jiang reassured him through his actions and intent, making it known that he planned to train independently, while Zhou remained injured. Though Zhou harbored doubts about Jiang's current abilities, he did not openly admit them. Jiang, sensing the hesitation, made it clear that reckless behavior was not part of his plan. Eventually, convinced that Jiang had no malicious intent, Zhou handed over the manual. After Jiang left, Zhou voiced his concerns to Jiang's elder, questioning whether giving him the manual had been a mistake. The response was firm and reassuring. Jiang's recent swordsmanship had been exceptional, and without him, none of them would have survived the assassination attempt. There was also confidence that the Taoist treatment was working, as Jiang's condition appeared stable and improved. While Zhou agreed that the treatment had helped, he could not help but wonder whether it had also enhanced Jiang's martial capabilities. His sudden growth was impossible to ignore. The only explanation that made sense was that Jiang must have experienced a fateful encounter that altered his path entirely. Despite these uncertainties, Zhou felt hopeful. For the first time in years, it seemed as though the Flame Hua clan's long decline might finally be coming to an end. At the training grounds, Jiang gathered his siblings and began instructing them personally. He laid out the foundation of the training, emphasizing fluid movement and natural transitions. The technique he introduced was a fundamental movement method he had personally developed through countless real combat experiences. His explanation alone left the two deeply impressed. Soyeon's reaction revealed her disbelief, as she recalled Elder Zhou once claiming that Jiang lacked real combat experience. Dajin, meanwhile, could hardly believe his sister would state such things so bluntly. Rather than dwell on words, Jiang pushed them forward, instructing both siblings to attack him simultaneously, using the basic fist techniques they had learned. They assumed their stances and moved in together, but their execution quickly disappointed him. Their movements were stiff, unrefined, and lacking even the most basic martial foundation. Watching them struggle, Jiang found it hard to believe they belonged to a martial clan at all. Realizing how severe the gap truly was, frustration took hold, and he abruptly ended the session. Claiming discomfort, he dismissed them for the day, stating that further training would only worsen his condition. The siblings were confused, especially since they had not even come close to landing a blow. To spare their pride, Jiang downplayed the situation, suggesting they were more capable than expected and explaining that their focus should be on strengthening their bodies before attempting advanced techniques. Once they left, Jiang remained behind, fully aware of the enormous challenge ahead. Training them would not be easy, and for the first time, he truly understood how difficult it must have been for his own master to guide him in the past. Still, he was determined. The clan's downfall rested partly on his shoulders, and he intended to restore its former glory. Beyond that, he also carried the resolve to defeat the one individual he had failed to overcome in his previous life. With that resolve burning, Jiang picked up his sword and began training alone. Almost immediately, he noticed how light the blade felt in his hands. With every repetition of his sword forms, his speed continued to increase, confirming that his body was steadily adapting and improving. Several days later, Du and Elder Zhou finally returned to active duty. Masak reported that every instruction given to him had been carried out successfully, and Jiang acknowledged their efforts. However, Masak seemed dissatisfied, pushing beyond what was necessary. Jiang's anger flared as he reminded them of how disastrous the situation would have been had he arrived even a moment later. Jiang issued a clear warning to the elders, making it known that such recklessness would not be tolerated again. The message was understood immediately, and both elders bowed deeply, apologizing for their foolish actions. Not long after, the Taoist who had treated Jiang finally arrived. Jiang failed to recognize the old man at first, and had already offended him before Masak hurriedly explained his identity. Masak apologized on Jiang's behalf, claiming that Jiang had not fully recovered, which explained his behavior. This only earned Masak a swift reprimand for speaking carelessly. Deciding not to escalate the situation further, Jiang composed himself and acknowledged the Taoist properly, expressing regret for his earlier behavior. He then urged the old man to accompany him inside, recognizing that the long journey must have taken its toll. Several days earlier, Masak had informed Jiang about the Taoist priest, who claimed to have inherited the Taoist lineage of the Wang sect. According to Masak, Jiang's recovery had been made possible through the priest's positive energy healing techniques. He also revealed that the chief steward had spent an enormous sum to bring the Taoist to the estate. Now, in the present, Jiang felt a sense of satisfaction at finally meeting the man, which was why he personally invited him into the compound. Jiang questioned the Taoist about the authenticity of his inheritance from the Wang sect's lineage, and the man confidently affirmed it, presenting himself with an air of composure. He even went so far as to claim that he was the sole inheritor of the sect's true Taoist essence. Hearing this, Jiang abruptly stomped the ground and demanded confirmation of whether the man was truly the Wang White Immortal, since Jiang had never heard of a living successor to that lineage. The Taoist attempted to feign ignorance, but Jiang made it clear that his patience was limited. Despite this pressure, the man continued to maintain his innocence, questioning whether Jiang truly doubted the person responsible for his healing. In response, Jiang immediately drew his massive sword. Since the man claimed to be a true Taoist, Jiang reasoned that evading a single strike should pose no difficulty. The blade swung down, narrowly missing the Taoist while leaving a massive gash in the stone floor. The sudden violence sent Masak and the elders into panic, as they feared Jiang was losing control once again. Jiang silenced them and ordered water to be brought, claiming he wanted to demonstrate something amusing. Once the water arrived, Jiang dumped it over the Taoist. Even then, the man continued acting oblivious, questioning whether this was how the clan repaid kindness. Ignoring him completely, Jiang reached out and yanked on the Taoist's long beard. It came off instantly, revealing it to be fake and leaving the elders and Masak completely stunned. The realization hit the Taoist at the same moment. His deception had been fully exposed. Jiang mocked the effort put into carefully attaching the beard, further humiliating the man. With no way out, the Taoist found himself surrounded and questioned by Jiang and his retainers. Masak asked what Jiang intended to do with him, and Jiang coldly made it clear that letting the man walk away was not an option. He suggested severing the man's limbs, and even hinted at turning him into a eunuch. The threat shattered the Taoist's composure, and he immediately began begging for mercy. Jiang clarified that killing him outright would be pointless, as there would be no way to recover the stolen money. Instead, he stated that removing limbs was still very much on the table. Terrified, the Taoist pleaded for his body to be left intact and promised to return every coin he had swindled. Jiang agreed to spare his limbs, but added that the man would still be charged for the privilege of remaining whole. Desperate, the Taoist accepted without hesitation, offering to pay any amount required. Jiang then asked how much money had originally been paid, and it was revealed that the sum totaled 50 gold Nayang. Jiang expressed clear disappointment at how easily that money had been handed over, though the explanation given was that the Taoist had a strong reputation as a healer. Turning back to the fraud, Jiang demanded the immediate return of the 50 gold. The Taoist claimed that the money was stored at his residence in Jinyang. Without wasting time, Jiang ordered him to lead the way, noting that the city was only 4 hours away. Du and Elder Zhou offered to accompany them, but Jiang refused, instructing them to remain behind due to their injuries and maintain order at the estate. As Jiang departed with the Taoist, Du noticed Zhou's lingering worry and reassured him that Jiang was no longer the unstable man he once had been. Not long after, they arrived at the location where the Taoist's carriage awaited. Jiang was immediately struck by how extravagant it was, a clear indication of how lucrative the man's fraudulent activities had been. His surprise only grew upon entering the carriage, where the interior was lavishly furnished with padded cotton and fine leather, clearly designed for comfort during long journeys. Jiang took note of this luxury and found it ironic given the man's chosen profession. The Taoist lowered his head submissively, signaling his intention to abandon deceitful practices moving forward. Jiang then settled into the carriage, making himself comfortable and deciding to rest. He instructed the Taoist to wake him once they reached their destination. Outwardly obedient, the Taoist agreed, but deep down resentment simmered. He harbored dark intentions and looked forward to retaliating against Jiang for the humiliation he had suffered. After several hours of travel, the carriage came to a stop in a quiet, isolated forest. The Taoist stepped outside to meet an acquaintance who was clearly a bandit. He informed the man that Jiang was fast asleep inside and instructed him to drag Jiang out and make an example of him. The bandit was eager, seeing no reason why anyone would dare cross a Taoist. The bandit climbed into the carriage and threw a punch toward Jiang. At the very last moment, Jiang intercepted the blow with his sword. He rose calmly, blocking the attack with ease, and appeared almost amused by the situation. With a single strike, Jiang sent the bandit flying out of the carriage, leaving the Taoist frozen in shock. The bandit felt the full force of the impact ripple through his body, and quickly realized that the rumors about Jiang's strength were no exaggeration. Regaining his footing, he prepared himself more seriously. Jiang stepped out of the carriage, questioning why their journey had led them to such a remote forest. It was then that Jiang fully understood the truth. The Taoist had never been just a simple con artist. He had planned this ambush all along. Rather than feeling anger, Jiang felt a sense of satisfaction. He had been craving a fight, releasing a crushing aura from his body. Jiang turned his attention to the bandit, ready to see exactly what the man was capable of. The large bandit immediately felt the crushing pressure radiating from Jiang and realized he could not handle him alone. He quickly signaled for backup, calling the rest of his group to emerge so they could face Jiang together. 3 more towering figures stepped out from their hiding places, revealing themselves as Zhang Shan's infamous 4 demons. As Jiang studied them closely, he could clearly sense traces of demonic energy flowing through their bodies. Despite noticing this abnormality, he chose not to address it immediately. Instead, his attention shifted to the assortment of weapons they carried, sparking his curiosity about the true extent of their abilities. Without hesitation, Jiang burst forward, targeting the apparent leader. He forced the man away from the others and relentlessly pressed the attack, driving him into a purely defensive position. A flurry of heavy strikes followed, each blow landing with overwhelming force. The remaining 3 quickly realized Jiang's intent and moved to support their leader. But even the man under attack could barely endure the punishment. The power behind Jiang's strikes felt like repeated blows from a massive mace. The leader soon lost his balance, and Jiang capitalized instantly, delivering a brutal kick to his face that crushed his mouth. At that moment, the others finally closed in. One swung an axe toward Jiang's head, but Jiang evaded effortlessly and countered with a crushing elbow strike to the attacker's abdomen, causing him to collapse in agony. The final 2 attempted a pincer attack. Striking from both sides, Jiang slipped past them with precise footwork, forcing them to overextend. This mistake left one wide open, and Jiang struck him down with a single punch. He then turned to the last remaining demon. The man raised his sword to block, but the weapon shattered upon impact. Jiang's blade nearly split him in half, stopping just short at the last instant. Frozen in terror, the man barely had time to react before Jiang sent him flying with a devastating kick to the chest. In moments, all 4 demons were defeated and forced to their knees, gasping for breath and unable to stand. Throughout the fight, Jiang confirmed his suspicions. They were indeed practicing demonic arts. This realization troubled him. Such techniques should not have existed within the Central Plains, viewing them as misguided juniors rather than true enemies. Jiang hesitated. He did not wish to kill them outright. The leader, overwhelmed by fear, openly conceded defeat and pleaded for mercy. Watching this unfold, Yang Su finally understood how deeply he had miscalculated. Jiang had dismantled Zhang Shan's 4 demons with frightening ease. The leader admitted that, after only a few exchanges, they had already realized how far beyond them Jiang truly was. Jiang questioned why they had continued fighting despite knowing the outcome. He ultimately decided to spare their lives, but declared that he would cripple their cultivation by destroying their energy cores and severing their meridians. Hearing this, the 4 panicked. The leader dropped to his knees, begging for leniency and insisting that they had only followed orders as martial artists. Jiang showed no sympathy for their excuses, remarking that they were already too old to plead innocence. He demanded to know who had taught them their demonic techniques. At first, the leader hesitated, pretending confusion, until it became clear that Jiang was asking about their master. Jiang pointed out that their demonic energy was obvious, even if poorly refined, and expressed curiosity about who would teach such methods. The leader admitted that they did not know their master's name. This response infuriated Jiang, who viewed them as utterly worthless disciples for failing to even know who they had learned from. The leader explained that their master had never revealed his identity, and had also warned them not to seek out his other disciples. Jiang criticized them harshly, stating that they would have been better off practicing mediocre martial arts instead of becoming bandits. The leader quickly clarified that they were not thieves, explaining that they merely assisted in their brother's business when needed. This revelation surprised Jiang, who scolded them for helping despite knowing the nature of Yang Su's activities. The leader defended himself by admitting that they genuinely believed Yang Su was involved in saving lives. After considering this, Jiang chose to let them go. He warned them to stop acting as lackeys for Yang Su, and made it clear that if he ever caught them committing evil deeds again, he would kill them without hesitation. Grateful for the mercy shown, the leader expressed his thanks. Jiang then turned his attention back to Yang Su, informing him that the price he would have to pay had increased significantly. Beyond repayment, Yang Su would now also be charged for the damage he had caused to Jiang's mental well-being. This declaration left Yang Su utterly terrified. Once the carriage departed, the 4 brothers finally came to a startling realization. Jiang was someone worthy of being followed. Acting on impulse, they chased after the carriage and forced it to stop. Jiang initially wondered what had caused the delay, but upon stepping outside, he found the 4 men bowing deeply before him. Declaring him their leader, they pledged their loyalty, vowing to serve him until death and begging him to accept them. Jiang, however, believed they were simply delirious from the beating he had given them. He attempted to dismiss them outright, but the 4 only shouted louder, insisting that he take responsibility for them. They even revealed that they were still relatively young. This revelation genuinely shocked Jiang, who had assumed they were much older due to their rough appearances and ugly faces. As the carriage continued deeper into the silent forest, decorated by the stillness of night, Jiang stared at the 4 demons sitting across from him. He found himself wondering how they could all be younger than him when he himself was only 23. He glanced at one of them with a sharp side-eye and mocked the idea that they might have suffered from some kind of energy deviation. One of them, the man with an iron club, calmly stated that such a thing had never happened and asked what exactly Jiang found so strange. Jiang let out a long breath and brushed the topic aside. He then admitted that he simply could not understand how demonic chi users could become warriors for a ruined orthodox sect. He reflected that the idea made no logical sense at all. At that moment, Chamuk, the oldest among the demons at 21, explained that his master had always taught him that demonic paths were not factions or affiliations, but rather ways of living and identities. The youngest brother, only 18, loudly agreed with him. Jiang sighed and acknowledged that the statement was not wrong. However, he also pointed out that, realistically, no orthodox family would ever accept people like them without being dragged into endless scandals. Hearing this, the second brother, Dongjio, who was 20, drew his sword and shouted in anger, declaring that he would split the head of anyone who said such things. The third brother, Jetty, 19 years old, echoed the threat with equal fury, Jiang smiled faintly as he observed their reactions. He thought to himself that they were incredibly naive, and their loyalty reminded him of someone dear from his past. He then stated firmly that serving another household meant risking their lives completely, obeying every command without question. Like dogs, he emphasized that personal freedom would have no meaning under such service. All four roared in unison that they would devote their lives wholeheartedly. Jiang placed a hand on his head and accepted their resolve. He declared that from this moment onward, they were warriors of the Manhwa clan. The four immediately expressed their gratitude together. Jiang told them not to address him as Lord, but instead to call him young master, and they acknowledged the order without hesitation. Later that night, they arrived at Du Yangsu's residence. As they dismounted, Jiang looked around at the extravagant estate and asked if this place truly belonged to him. Du Yangsu panicked and confirmed that it did, quickly inviting them inside while shouting for a servant to open the gate. When the servant asked what was happening, Du Yangsu scolded him harshly and ordered food to be prepared in the annex building. Jiang interrupted and stated that before eating, he wanted to see the treasure room. Du Yangsu nervously agreed and led the way. As they walked inside, Jiang thought about how this dog had built such a luxurious life by feeding off other people's money. Suddenly, a man named Bai Sajin appeared and blocked their path. He asked Du Yangsu if something had gone wrong. Du Yangsu, clearly shaken, denied any issue and told him to go inside. Bai Sajin insisted that Du Yangsu could not hide things from him and demanded to know who these people were. Jiang cut him off with a heavy sigh and coldly stated that Du Yangsu had already told him to leave. He criticized Bai Sajin for poking his nose into matters that did not concern him and advised him to behave like a guest if he wished to remain one. Bai Sajin's eyes narrowed as he stepped forward and blocked Jiang's path, remarking that Jiang's tongue moved too freely for his age. From behind, Chamuk stepped forward and asked Jiang if he should handle the situation. Du Yangsu panicked again and hurriedly explained that there was a misunderstanding, claiming that Bai Sajin was also a guest. He then quickly introduced them as the four demons of Jianshan and revealed Jiang as the first young master of the Manhwa clan. After a brief silence, Bai Sajin smiled and remarked that it was no wonder Jiang's tongue was so sharp. Considering he was the eldest son of the Manhwa clan, he found it amusing that an orthodox sect saint was roaming around with lowlifes and terrorizing civilians. Jiang responded coldly that if Bai Sajin's amusement was over, he should step aside because they were busy. Bai Sajin twisted his head with a mocking smile and claimed that Jiang's grandfather must be crying in his grave for seeing an orthodox heir walking alongside demonic eye users and threatening commoners. The moment Bai Sajin uttered his final insult, calling Jiang pathetic trash, everything froze. Du Yangsu tried to intervene, but Bai Sajin stopped him and drew his sword, stating confidently that there was no need to worry because he was not some shabby swordsman who would lose so easily. Du Yangsu's face lit up with relief. From behind, Nosix pulled out his iron club and stated that enough was enough. Asking for permission to break Bai Sajin's tongue, Jiang stopped him by gripping his joint sword and declared that he would handle it himself. Jiang immediately leapt high to the side and landed in the open space. He remarked that a dog should know how to protect its master, then mocked Bai Sajin directly. Bai Sajin's face twisted in rage as he lunged forward with his sword. Jiang blocked the strike with his joint sword. Bai Sajin continued launching violent swings, all of which Jiang calmly blocked. After several exchanges, Jiang smiled and noted that while Bai Sajin's sword style was fast, it lacked strength. He suddenly dragged Bai Sajin's sword downward, catching him off guard. In that instant, Jiang raised his blade and swung horizontally. Bai Sajin barely avoided the strike by leaning back. Jiang followed up instantly with another attack, which Bai Sajin managed to block. However, Bai Sajin's eyes widened as cracks appeared on his sword, and he cried out in shock. Watching from the side, Dong Jia and the other demons declared that it was already over. Nosix agreed and added that once Jiang started pushing someone back, there was no return. He stated that Jiang's sword was tougher than an iron road itself, and now either the sword would break or Bai Sajin's skull would. Du Yangsu watched everything in complete shock, muttering to himself. Suddenly, the sound of steel ringing out echoed loudly as Bai Sajin's sword snapped in half and fell to the ground. As the broken pieces landed, Jiang stepped forward and slammed the flat of his blade into Bai Sajin's stomach. Bai Sajin flew backward, rolling across the ground before crashing into a nearby wall. Dong Yuk, who had been watching alongside Du Yangsu, commented that this outcome was exactly as expected. The other brothers nodded in agreement. Jiang turned toward them and shouted for the iron club. Nosix immediately responded and threw it to him. Moments later, Jiang raised the iron club high and stared down at Bai Sajin lying on the ground. He reminded him of what he had said about his godfather crying in his grave. A wide, terrifying smile spread across Jiang's face as he declared that he would bury Bai Sajin's screams in the coffin right beside that grave. Bai Sajin tried to say something as he looked up, but before he could, Jiang began beating him relentlessly with the iron club. Jiang shouted as he struck again and again, ordering him to lower his hands and calling him an animal, declaring that his bones would be shattered. He stated that it did not matter if some of Bai Sajin's bones broke, because he would be the one placed in the coffin beside Jiang's grandfather. Jiang then burst into mad laughter, laughing wildly as he continued. His insane laughter echoed throughout the night, filling the entire estate. Watching the brutal beating, Dogjak remarked that the man looked like he could die at any moment. Hearing this, Yangsu panicked. He immediately rushed toward Jiang and tried to stop him. Desperately begging with folded hands, he pleaded for Jiang to spare the man and claimed he was willing to pay the price of his life in exchange. Jiang calmly asked if he was truly serious. Yangsu quickly explained that Bai Sajin had connections with the unorthodox martial heaven and that he could not allow such a person to die in his house. He continued begging, insisting that Jiang take as much as he wanted, as long as Bai Sajin was left alive. Jiang appeared slightly amused. He remarked that he had assumed Yangsu was betting everything on this fool to kill him so that Yangsu could escape. With a bright smile, he added that Yangsu should have mentioned money earlier, because then he would not have tortured Bai Sajin so much. Seeing Jiang's expression change in an instant, Yangsu thought to himself that this man was completely insane. He then led them to his treasure room. After seeing the room, Jiang commented that Yangsu seemed to have accumulated quite a lot and declared that it was time to start calculating. Jiang began by stating that the 4 men standing behind Yangsu were first. Each of their lives was valued at 500 gold. Hearing this, Yangsu thought to himself that Jiang had just said he would make them warriors of the Flame Hua clan, so he could not understand why he was paying for them. However, Jiang continued calmly. Jiang added 200 gold as compensation for Yangsu's trembling limbs, 300 gold for Yangsu's own life, and 1,000 gold for his noisy companion who had been shouting earlier. Finally, he added 3,000 gold for the psychological damage Jiang had suffered and the physical strength he had wasted that day. He concluded that the calculation was simple and ordered Yangsu to hand over everything he had. Yangsu cried and agreed without objection, though he cursed Jiang in his heart for completely robbing him. In the next scene, the 4 demonic cultivators were shown emptying Yangsu's treasure vault entirely under Jiang's orders. Jiang instructed them not to leave anything behind. One of them respectfully acknowledged the command. Jiang's attention was then drawn to an unusual folding screen. He felt something suspicious about it and sensed a strange aura coming from it. As he stared at it, he quietly wondered if it was just his imagination. Seeing this, Yangsu asked whether Jiang liked the folding screen. Jiang casually replied that he did not like it that much. Hearing this, Yangsu immediately began flattering him, praising his sharp eye, and explaining that the folding screen had been made by Master Zhang Sasen. He added that since Jiang's room looked empty, he thought it would suit him well, and offered to let him take it if he liked. With a faint smile, Jiang accepted the offer, saying he would take it without hesitation. Yangsu cursed him inwardly, thinking about how greedy he was. Soon after, the 4 brothers loaded all the gold and the folding screen onto the carriage. Jiang then remarked that Yangsu would no longer need his carriage, since he would not be traveling much anymore, and declared that he would take it as well. Yangsu reluctantly agreed, saying it would be an honor if Jiang made good use of it. Jiang smiled widely and ordered everyone to depart. Jiang remarked that he genuinely felt pity for Yangsu, because he had taken absolutely everything and left nothing behind. The group departed in the carriage, while Yangsu waved them off. Even as they left, Jiang did not miss the chance to mock him, advising him to live a straightforward and honest life, and promising they would meet again. Trembling, Yangsu replied that they would meet again, lamenting how badly he had been beat and wondering whether Jiang was even human. He cursed the heavens for being so cruel and questioned what sin he had committed to encounter a demon like Jiang. He continued crying as he watched the carriage disappear into the distance. The scene then shifted to the Flame Hua clan. Masak stared in shock at the enormous amount of gold and exclaimed in disbelief. The brothers were shown unloading box after box of gold from the carriage. Masak asked in shock where all this money had come from. Jiang casually replied that Masak himself had mentioned they were short on funds and advised him to spend it carefully. Pointing at the brothers, Jiang then asked Masak how old he thought they were. Observing their muscular builds, Masak commented that they looked extremely sturdy and not like ordinary people. He guessed that they all appeared to be over 40 years old. Jiang smiled and remarked that he would be sure to tell them, adding that they would probably like hearing that. Masak stood there completely confused. Jiang then asked where Elder Du and Elder Zhou were, noting that he had not seen them upon arrival. Masak recalled that important guests had arrived, so they were attending them in the reception hall. He added that they had instructed him to bring Jiang there as soon as he arrived. Jiang reacted irritably, wondering if another guest had arrived to scam them again. Masak panicked and shouted for him not to kill anyone, urging him to hurry. Jiang sighed and muttered about what those old men might have done this time. The scene shifted to the reception hall. As Jiang entered, someone announced his arrival. Elder Zhou looked at him happily, while Elder Du respectfully welcomed him. Elder Du introduced the 3 merchant group leaders who had supported the clan during difficult times. The leader of the Ponyang merchant group, Pungano, showed his respect and remarked that he had heard the hidden dragon had awakened, and now he could see it was true. He introduced himself as the leader of the Ponyang merchant group. Next, Dong Mano, the leader of the Morang merchant union, introduced himself and stated that seeing Jiang in good health brought him peace of mind. Lastly, Bang Yuching, the master of the Golden Finance Manor, introduced himself and said it had been a long time since he had last come to pay his respects. Jiang politely bowed and introduced himself as Jiang Mujin of the Flame Hua clan. Thanking them for coming, everyone smiled and took their seats. After a brief pause, Jiang directly stated that the 3 of them had come to collect their debts. Hearing this, all 3 merchant leaders were momentarily shocked. Pungano immediately denied it, claiming they had only come to congratulate Jiang on his recovery and apologizing if they had caused any trouble. Jiang calmly replied that he would never forget their kindness, but repayment had to be done properly. He admitted that he did not yet know the full condition of the clan, and asked them to first tell him the total amount owed. Elder Du was shocked and tried to speak, but Jiang stopped him with a hand gesture, and explained that only after knowing the amount could a repayment schedule be decided. Hearing this, the master of the Golden Finance Manor agreed, and said they would provide approximate figures. The Ponyang merchant group was owed 5,300 nyongs, the Golden Finance Manor 3,200 nyongs, and the Morang Merchant Union 1,900 nyongs. Jiang calculated quickly, and stated that the total was 10,400 nyongs. Hearing this, the merchant leaders exchanged glances. Then Pungano revealed a shocking truth. He admitted that since everything was already out in the open, they wanted to be honest. They had been under pressure from the Changya merchant group for a long time. Elder Du was shocked upon hearing this. Jiang repeated the name Changya merchant group, prompting Pungano to explain further. He revealed that the Changya merchant group wanted to take over the debt rights they had given the Flame Hua clan. Knowing it would harm the clan, they had always rejected the proposal. However, after the 12th month, the Changya merchant group began suppressing them with their massive financial power. They monopolized all their trading goods, cut off allied merchant groups, and even stole away their branch managers. He described them as completely shameless. Hearing this, Elder Zhou exclaimed in shock, realizing what had been happening behind the scenes. The master of the Golden Finance Manor admitted that they could no longer endure the pressure, and explained that before surrendering the debt rights, they felt it was necessary to warn the Flame Hua clan. Jiang listened quietly, and then expressed his heartfelt gratitude for their generosity. He said his heart felt heavy thinking about everything they had endured. He reflected that when the clan was prosperous, many people stood with them, but when hard times came, everyone left except Elder Zhou, Elder Du, and these 3 groups. Jiang admitted that he might not be skilled in scholarly matters, but he understood one thing clearly. Any loan or debt must be properly repaid. He then declared that he would repay all of the clan's debt claims at that very moment. The merchant leaders stood up in shock, unable to believe what they were hearing. Jiang confirmed that it was absolutely possible. With a devilish look, he added that not only would he repay everything with interest, but he would also free them all from the Changya merchant group on that very day. Hearing Jiang's words, all 3 merchant leaders were completely stunned. After a moment, the Machin group leader took a deep breath and stated that if this was true, it meant Jiang was willing to use force on their behalf. Jiang replied calmly that this was indeed the case. Elder Du shouted in shock, questioning what Jiang was saying and whether he even understood who was backing those people. He revealed that the Kangdong sect stood behind them, one of the strongest sects in all of Murim. Jiang looked at him casually and remarked that it was just those old men backing them up. Elder Du grew even more worried and warned that this was not a light matter. Before he could continue, the Golden Finance Manor master stopped him and said there was no need to worry. He explained that if Jiang simply helped them settle the debt issue, it would already be an enormous favor, and they would never allow the Flame Hua clan to clash directly with Kangdong sect. The finance master then added that just as he had thought, the sleeping dragon had finally awakened, and Jiang's words had greatly eased his heart. The meeting continued for a while longer, before finally coming to an end. Everyone prepared to leave the hall. The three leaders offered their farewells, wishing prosperity to the Flame Hua clan. Jiang and his group returned the courtesy and wished them safe travels. The three merchant leaders then departed. As Jiang watched them leave, he turned to Elder Du and instructed him to gather complete information on the Changya merchant group. He ordered him to investigate their finances, operating regions, trading goods, and their connections with the Kangdong sect. Elder Du was shocked and asked Jiang to wait, questioning whether he was truly serious about what he had said earlier. Jiang narrowed his eyes and replied that he was not joking. He stated that both kindness and madness needed to be repaid clearly. He reminded Elder Du of what the Changya merchant group had done, and warned that if they were allowed to go free, they would place a knife at the clan's throat next time. Jiang added that the situation had already become all or nothing. After supporting them for so many years, this was the result they received. Since those people would no longer help them, the least the clan could do was repay the favor properly. Otherwise, everyone would dismiss it as the madness of a lunatic. Jiang thought to himself that they would see what happened next. At that moment, someone arrived and reported that all the tasks Jiang had assigned were complete. Jiang told everyone to gather and instructed them to greet the newcomers, introducing Elder Zhou and Elder Du as the clan's elders. Both elders were stunned. Elder Du asked who these people were. Jiang calmly introduced them as new warriors joining the clan, the famous 4 demons of Jiangshan. The 4 bowed respectfully and asked the elders to look after them. The elders were still in shock when Jiang casually told them not to be too surprised, adding that there was something even more shocking. He revealed that all 4 of them were younger than him. Hearing this, both elders were shaken and found it impossible to believe. Elder Zhou, Elder Du, and Masak stared at the 4 demons in disbelief. At that moment, the 4th brother, Najang, spoke boldly, saying he was very hungry and wanted to go eat some meat. Another brother asked in confusion why everyone was staring at them so intensely. Najang replied that they were obviously overwhelmed by their presence. Elder Zhou then turned to Jiang and warned him that the 4 demons of Jiangshan had a terrifying reputation. He questioned how Jiang could bring them into the clan without consulting the elders. Jiang responded casually by reminding them that they had not consulted him when they secretly planned to send his younger siblings away. Both elders fell silent. Jiang then announced that if he approved, the 4 would stay, and if not, they would be expelled immediately. He reminded them that he was about to become the next clan patriarch. Jiang then instructed Masak to go buy masks. Masak hesitated, but Elder Du pointed out that the clan had no money left, reminding everyone that more than 10,000 gold had just been spent repaying debts. Jiang listened calmly and then led them into a room. Inside were the gold boxes he had taken from Yangsu. Seeing this, the elders were shocked once again. Elder Du asked what all of this was. Jiang replied casually that Yangsu had been hiding quite a large fortune. Elder Zhou also began to feel suspicious, but Jiang told them to relax and assured them that he had not killed Yangsu. He explained that he had only taken back what he believed belonged to him. Elder Du then noticed the folding screen and asked about it. Jiang replied casually that Yangsu said it was a piece by Zhang Sasan and had simply given it to him. Hearing this, Elder Du was shocked once more. Jiang added that even if it were sold cheaply, it would fetch at least 90 gold, which was why he took it. Elder Du examined it and said it looked authentic. Jiang then asked whether that was enough to buy meat. Elder Du replied that it was more than enough. Jiang told them to stop complaining and go buy it. Everyone left the room. As Jiang turned back to look at the closed door one last time, he felt something strange coming from the folding screen, a feeling he could not quite explain. The scene shifted to the next morning at the training ground, where everyone had gathered. Jiang told them that they were probably wondering why he had called them so early. He explained that over the past few days, he had realized they desperately needed special training. He stated that the true foundation of swordsmanship was the body that wielded the sword. No matter how great one's martial arts were, if the body was weak, everything became meaningless. From that day onward, they would begin special physical training, which he would personally oversee. He added that he hoped no one would drop out. Jiang pointed to the sacks near their feet and explained that each sack weighed 144 kilograms. From that day on, these sacks would be their sole training partners. He warned them that the sacks were not food, and if anyone was caught eating from them, their life would be over. Jiang then looked at Sajin and asked why their sack looked so small. Sajin estimated that it weighed around 15 kilograms. At that moment, the squad leaders nervously asked what they were supposed to do with them. Jiang twisted his lips into a strange smile and told them to lift the sacks onto their shoulders. The squad leaders' eyes widened in disbelief. One squad member laughed and commented that such sacks were usually carried by 2 people together. Jiang shot him a cold, angry glare and ordered him to be silent and lift it. He warned that if they refused, they should prepare for a beating. He added that his sword might not cut cleanly, but a single strike would turn their bones into pulp. He told them to choose between lifting the sack or sparring with him. Naturally, everyone chose the first option. Balda stepped forward first and tried to lift the rice sack. The moment he placed it on his shoulder, his body began to tremble violently. Seeing this, Jiang walked over and mocked the 4 demons, questioning whether they were a joke. He pointed out that they practiced demonic arts, yet this was their condition. With a dangerous look, he announced that each of the 4 demons would carry 3 sacks. If they could not, they were welcome to spar with him. Left with no choice, all 4 demons lifted 3 sacks each. Their legs trembled, as if they were about to collapse at any moment. Seeing this, the elders asked in disbelief what exactly was going on. Elder Zhou, worried, asked what Jiang was planning to do next. While the others stood with 1 sack each, the 4 demons were crushed under 3 sacks apiece. Jiang told them that since they had chosen to lift them, they should use all their strength. He ordered them to throw away weak thoughts like doubting whether they could do it. He warned that failure meant certain death, and declared that nothing was truly impossible in this world. Finishing his strange motivational speech, Jiang praised them briefly and ordered them to begin. He commanded them to start squats, 200 repetitions, counting along with him from 1. With that, their brutal training officially began. Soon, everyone began collapsing under the crushing weight. Their legs trembled uncontrollably, barely able to support their bodies anymore. At that moment, one man finally broke down and screamed in agony. Before anyone could react, Mugen's thunderous roar exploded across the training ground. His voice struck them like a hammer, shaking their bodies and piercing straight into their souls. He shouted for them to do push-ups, his fury rising even higher, with veins bulging and eyes blazing. He ordered them to tighten their cores and lift the sacks properly. He cursed them mercilessly, warning them that if they planned to die so easily, they might as well do it right there. As the entire line collapsed at once, Mugen completely lost his temper. He stormed toward them like a raging beast and declared that anyone who dared to complain would not leave alive. Fear spread instantly, legs shook even harder, muscles screamed in protest, and panic filled their minds. Jiang Sujun trembled internally, thinking that his entire body felt as if it were breaking apart from the inside. He realized that if he failed to endure this, young Master Mugen would truly kill him. Gritting his teeth, he poured everything he had left into lifting the sack, screaming silently as he forced his body to obey. From a distance, an elder watched in disbelief, muttering that just watching this training was exhausting. He could not understand how such young children were supposed to endure something like this. Mugen immediately cut him off, shouting that if they truly wanted to become martial artists, they needed to stop wasting the clan's food. He declared that weak people like them were not fit to live and barely even qualified to die. By evening, everyone collapsed onto the ground, completely drained. The squad leader barely managed to choke out that they had reached 200 repetitions. Mugen exhaled calmly and remarked that the entire day had passed in nothing more than warm-up exercises. He mocked their pitiful stamina and stated that with bodies like these, they had no right to dream of practicing martial arts. For the day, the training was over. However, he made it clear that from now on, they would become one with their sacks. They would eat with them, sleep with them, and train with them. They were to carry the sacks everywhere at all times, without exception, until Mugen himself allowed them to put them down. Mugen then called Jiang Sajin forward. Sajin looked at him nervously and bowed in fear. Mugen ordered him to tie everyone to their sacks using ropes. He coldly warned that if anyone tried to cut the rope, he would cut their life instead. With that, Mugen turned and walked away. Watching his back, Jiang Sajin felt chills run down his spine. In his heart, he wished he could see his mother's face just once more. As Mugen was leaving, he instructed Masak to make sure everyone received meat with their meals starting that day. Masak immediately acknowledged the order. He then asked if he should prepare Mugen's bath, but Mugen refused, saying he would inform him later. Mugen entered his room and shut the door behind him, collapsing onto the bed. The training had exhausted even him. Still, he could not allow anyone to see that weakness. If the master showed cracks, the others would lose their will to endure. That night, everyone gathered at the dining table. Their hands shook so badly that they could barely lift their food. One of them wondered internally why their hands were trembling when they had only trained their legs. Another silently realized he was experiencing the same thing. The next day arrived, and the training resumed immediately. Mugen forced everyone to do push-ups, performing them alongside them as well. His count echoed through the air. Climbing steadily past 40, he shouted for them to keep their bodies straight and reminded them that they still had 120 repetitions left. Another day passed, and the scene shifted to something even stranger. Everyone was waddling through the entire town like ducks, carrying their sacks and making ridiculous movements. Mugen led from the front, ordering them to follow him. Villagers stared with twisted expressions, unable to understand what they were witnessing. One disciple wondered silently what exactly they were doing anymore. The following day, the sacks returned once again. Mugen shouted for them to hurry up, asking whether they planned to waste the entire day like this. Despite his own exhaustion, Mugen continued training relentlessly. As he watched the children, he realized they were doing better than he had expected. A dangerous thought crossed his mind. Perhaps it was time to give them even harsher trials. Eventually, Mugen led everyone to a massive waterfall. He observed how drenched in sweat and utterly exhausted they were. Then he told them they would now cross the waterfall together. He made it clear that this was not kindness. This too was part of the training. Mugen's two siblings were shown among the group. One looked excited, while the other was clearly terrified, secretly thinking about whether he should admit that he did not know how to swim. The elders panicked and shouted warnings, saying the current was far too strong and that people often drowned there. Mugen silenced them, claiming everything had already been tested. When questioned about when he had tested it, Mugen gave them only two options: cross the river or fight him. Without hesitation, Mugen jumped in. Seeing this, Zhang Soyin's companion whispered that jumping into the river offered a higher chance of survival than fighting Mugen. He jumped in immediately, one by one. Everyone else followed. The squad leader ordered those unwilling to jump to step aside. Soyin also moved forward and leaped in. One boy remained frozen in place. Torn by fear, finally he made his decision, declaring himself a warrior of the Flame Hua clan, and ran forward, jumping into the river. The elders screamed his name in horror. Mugen shouted at everyone to hurry, warning them that if they were too slow, they would be swept away by the waterfall and die. The scene focused on Dajin, who struggled desperately in the water. Swimming felt impossible, and his strength was rapidly fading. He told himself that he could do it, but no matter how hard he tried, his body continued sinking deeper into the river. Elder Joe noticed that Dajin was struggling violently in the water. Panic flashed across his face as he shouted that Dajin was being swept away. He immediately turned toward Mugen and yelled that young Master Dajin was drowning. As Dajin continued fighting the current, Jeet reacted instantly, without hesitation. He surged forward at full speed toward Dajin. Within moments, he managed to grab hold of him. He signaled Dajin to take one deep breath and instructed him to hold on tightly when the time came. Realizing that it was already too late to turn back, Jeet decided they would push forward instead. As they approached the waterfall, Jeet told Dajin to prepare himself. Dajin panicked and screamed in confusion, and in the very next moment, both of them were dragged down over the waterfall together. Jeet shouted for Dajin to breathe. From the cliff above, the elders rushed forward and looked down in horror. Elder Du cried out Dajin's name, while Elder Joe pointed downward, signaling that they were there. Below, Jeet struggled desperately and managed to drag Dajin toward the nearby riverbank. Once they reached the shore, Jeet told Dajin that he had done well. Gasping for air, Dajin thanked him and acknowledged that Jeet had saved his life. Jeet brushed it off, saying it was nothing. At that moment, Mugen appeared from behind them and called out to his brother. He approached Dajin closely, checking if he had hit anything during the fall. Dajin replied that he was fine, and admitted that he had been lucky Jeet came to help him. Jeet stood to the side, stunned, realizing that young Master Mugen had been following them all along without anyone noticing. Mugen then warned his younger brother not to push himself too hard. He acknowledged that it was good Dajin was enduring the same training as everyone else. But if anything happened to him, everything would become meaningless. Dajin fell silent for a moment and looked at his older brother. He then declared that he could not remain a child forever. He stated that he would stay with Mugen until the very end, and only then could he become a proper martial artist of the Flame Hua clan. Hearing this, Mugen finally relaxed and smiled at his brother's resolve. Jeet, standing nearby, spoke with clear admiration toward young Master Dajin. Dajin shyly thanked him, up on the cliff. Both elders also released deep sighs of relief. Time passed and the brutal training continued. They began climbing mountains using only their hands. While rice sacks were still tightly bound to their backs, Mujin led from the front, climbing ahead of everyone else. Looking down, he shouted that if they fell from there, they would not survive. He ordered them to hurry and climb upward like clinging grains of sand. One warrior who struggled to climb thought bitterly that Mujin was a complete lunatic, and that following him had been a terrible mistake. Suddenly his foot slipped, and he screamed as he began to fall. Somehow he managed to grab the rope tied to Dogjuk's rice sack. Dogjuk, already struggling under extra weight, snapped in anger and demanded to know what was happening. The warrior burst into tears, his body shaking uncontrollably as he begged for help. Dogjuk cursed loudly, telling him not to panic and ordering him to grab the rock in front of him. Calling him an idiot, as time went on, the training shifted to running through the streets. Rice sacks still remained strapped to everyone's backs. Mujin shouted for them to keep running, and warned that anyone who fell behind would have to carry another person on their back. A small child watching them asked his mother if they were death row convicts. The mother replied that she had heard they were warriors of the Flame Hua clan. While running, Dajin and Soon were both breathing heavily. Suddenly, Soon's vision blurred. She tried to steady her breathing, but her strength gave out, and she collapsed onto the ground unconscious. Hajin rushed to her side, calling her name in panic. Elder Joe immediately ran over and asked if Lady Soon was all right. In a weak voice, Soon asked Elder Joe to carry her for a moment and hurry. Elder Joe froze briefly in shock, then quickly lifted her into his arms. While being carried, Soon turned her head and glanced back at Norok and Dongjak. With a faint smirk, she taunted them. Both of them froze in confusion for a brief moment. Mujin shot them an angry glare and demanded to know what they were doing. He stated that if they planned to collapse like little girls, he would not stop them. However, he warned that they would have to risk their lives for it. He then shouted again for everyone to resume running immediately. When they finally reached the station, all the warriors collapsed onto the ground, either lying flat or leaning against walls while struggling to catch their breath. One warrior sat slumped against a wall, panting heavily. Dongjak approached him and looked down at him coldly. He pointed out that the warrior always lagged behind during training and never completed the required laps. Dongjak questioned how long the warrior planned to lie there and how much suffering others had to endure because of him. He stated that if the warrior believed he could not endure anymore, he should find his own way out instead of dragging everyone down with him. The warrior remained silent and lowered his head. Dongjak raised his voice, demanding to know whether the warrior was even listening. Finally, the warrior spoke, saying that Mujin had said he would kill them. Dongjak questioned what that meant. The warrior explained that Dongjak believed they were all doing this willingly. But if he tried to say these things to young Master Mujin, he would not even be able to finish before being beaten to death. Dongjak interrupted him, stating that the warrior stayed silent only because he was afraid Mujin would beat him to death. He mocked him, asking if that was why he always lay there like a century-old corpse. Dongjak declared that it was obvious the warrior was not meant for the life of a warrior, and threatened to end his life right there. The warrior suddenly screamed, staggering backward as he demanded to know why Dongjak was doing this to him. At that moment, Chilbuk stepped forward and grabbed Dongjak, trying to stop him. He said that not everyone could be as strong as Dongjak. Suddenly, Dongjak yanked his arm free and drove a punch straight into Chilbuk's stomach. He shouted that if Chilbuk felt so much pain, he should stop pretending to be a warrior. Chilbuk collapsed to the ground, coughing violently. Dongjak looked down at him and ordered him to get up, declaring that he would start killing him now. As Dongjak prepared to throw another punch, Chamuk shouted for him to stop. He stated that the man Chilbuk defended was doing his best in his own way. Since joining the Flame Hua clan, he had become their brother, and Dongjak should leave him alone. Dongjak turned toward Chamuk and shouted angrily, questioning whether trash like that counted as a brother. He mocked Chamuk for believing they were brothers after witnessing such weakness, and asked how long he planned to remain foolish. He declared that people like that would never become strong, and that this was not what they wanted. Chamuk responded calmly, stating that young Master Mujin had trained with the sword for several years longer than all of them. Everyone had endured his training differently, but it was not meaningless like Dongjak believed. He added that if Dongjak wanted to speak like that, he should first prove himself superior. Dongjak laughed and walked away. Before leaving, he looked back at the warrior and warned that if he caused him trouble again, he would kill him himself before young Master Mujin ever got the chance. Later that night, Dongjak sat outside, struggling to stand while groaning in pain. He complained bitterly about how far away the toilet was. As he walked, he heard noises nearby. Wondering who could be there at this hour, he hid behind a wall. When he peeked out, he saw Mujin alone in the darkness, training relentlessly with his massive sword under the night sky. Dongjak stared in shock, unable to believe what he was witnessing, and muttered young Master Mujin's name in disbelief. Dongjak realized that what he was witnessing was not just speed. Power was overflowing from Mujin's body like a raging current. Yet every movement was so smooth it felt like flowing water. The balance between strength and control was unreal. Dongjak thought to himself that their ages were not that far apart. Yet the gap between them felt immeasurable. How could someone of the same generation possess such terrifying self-control and mastery? For the first time, the thought crossed his mind. This must be what true martial talent looks like. Suddenly, Mujin stopped. His gaze locked onto the exact spot where Dongjak was hiding. The atmosphere turned sharp and heavy. Mujin demanded that whoever was there should come out, threatening to crush their skull if they didn't. Dongjak immediately stepped out from the bushes, nervously identifying himself. Mujin asked what he was doing there. Dongjak explained that he was returning from the restroom and had accidentally wandered into the area, insisting he hadn't come intentionally. Mujin dismissed it, saying it didn't matter. He admitted he had been bored anyway, and that the timing was perfect. Mujin ordered him to put down the rice sack and pick up the sword nearby. Dongjak froze in confusion for a moment, then obeyed. He placed the sack down, drew the sword, and prepared himself. Mujin calmly gestured for him to come forward. Without hesitation, Dongjak rushed in and swung his blade. A loud clash echoed as Mujin blocked the strike effortlessly. Dongjak clenched his teeth and continued attacking relentlessly, but every strike was cleanly parried. His eyes widened in shock. He knew this wouldn't work, but something felt different. His sword felt lighter, faster, more responsive than before. He swung again, moving faster than he ever had. Mujin blocked once more, then scoffed, remarking that Dongjak was finally starting to become somewhat usable. In a blink, Mujin repositioned behind him, blade ready, and pointed out his flaw. Dongjak was only focused on what was in front of him. In the next instant, Dongjak was knocked to the ground. He rolled, jumped back, and took a defensive stance, teeth clenched in frustration. Mujin smiled faintly. He remarked that before Dongjak would have fallen from a single hit, but now he had at least become tougher. Dongjak placed his hand on his side, where the impact had landed. The pain was still there, but something had changed. One strike no longer completely shut his body down. Mujin turned away and ended the session, telling him that was enough for the night and ordering him to rest. Dongjak bowed deeply in respect and wished him rest as well. A few seconds later, Dongjak slowly raised his hand, as if something important had finally clicked in his mind. The next day, training resumed. Mujin announced that the focus would be abdominal conditioning. He ordered everyone to clamp the rice sacks between their legs and hang from the bars. The warriors suspended themselves, gripping the sacks tightly between their legs. Sweat poured down their bodies as they struggled to endure the strain. Dongjak trained with absolute intensity, pushing himself without hesitation. The other warriors watched in shock, whispering among themselves, unable to believe how anyone could endure this kind of training. The trainees looked more fired up than ever before. By noon, the street running began again. The same warrior who always fell behind was gasping for breath. On the verge of collapsing, he told himself that he couldn't fall again. At that moment, someone grabbed the back of his rice sack and pulled him forward. It was Dongjak. He told him to endure just a little longer, only a little more remained. Mujin glanced back and a faint smile appeared on his face. A full month passed like this. Finally, Mujin gathered the warriors and announced that they had all endured well. He declared that the special training officially ended that day. He ordered them to untie their ropes and place the sacks on the ground. Cheers erupted instantly across the training grounds. With a faint smirk, Mujin told them their happiness would only last a moment. He revealed that the same training would be repeated every year during both summer and winter. He added that the next training would be in winter and would feel slightly easier, not because it would be gentle, but because they were now experienced. He emphasized that this experience itself was priceless. He officially declared the training complete, but issued a final warning. Only a strong body can forge a strong sword. The warriors responded in unison. Mujin drew his sword from behind his back and made another announcement. From that moment on, practical sparring training would begin so their experience could rise to the next level. He declared that when he called someone's name, that person would step forward with their weapon of choice. Shock froze the warriors in place. Their joy vanished instantly. What followed was endless pain, repeated beatings, unconsciousness, and a cycle of suffering that felt eternal. But that suffering became their experience, and that experience transformed them. Those once known as the Four Demons of Yungshan were no longer symbols of fear. They became the new martial arts instructors of the Flame Hua clan. Slowly, the Flame Hua clan regained its former glory, the same glory that once illuminated Jaicheng. Time passed in the training yard. Young Master Dojin sparred with Noke. Dojin delivered a kick, which Noke blocked with a sack and praised his form, instructing him to rotate his supporting foot to increase power and distance. The elders observed quietly. Chief Du commented that Dojin had finally returned to his old self. Elder Joe nodded in agreement, saying it had been a long time since they had seen that expression on his face. Chief Du reflected that no one could have imagined Dojin blending so well with the former Yungshin Four Demons. But the most important point, he said, was that young Master Mujin had regained control and stabilized the clan. Everything was running so smoothly that it almost felt unsettling. Elder Joe agreed, noting that Mujin's madness still seemed to flare up at times. He wondered whether Mujin would come out of storage today. Inside the storage house, Mujin sat cross-legged at the center of the room in deep meditation. His internal energy circulated slowly, and the turbulent aura around him gradually calmed. He opened his eyes and reflected that it had been 14 days. His gaze shifted toward an ornate folding screen. It looked deceptively still, but it was clearly not ordinary. The more inner energy he poured into it, the more powerfully it pushed back against him. A slow, confident smile formed on Mujin's lips. He accepted the challenge. Let's see who wins. The scene opens with Jiang slowly opening his eyes. Almost instantly, Yang Su panics and rushes toward a folding screen, screaming in alarm. Jiang calmly reaches out and lightly taps the folding screen with a single finger. For a brief moment, nothing happens. However, as soon as Jiang pulls his finger back, a bottle slips out from beneath the screen and falls to the floor. From it, a green poisonous liquid begins leaking slowly. Sensing the danger, Jiang immediately holds his breath and carefully picks up the bottle. He finds it absurd that anyone would hide such a deadly poison beneath a folding screen. As he looks down again, he notices something else partially sticking out from under the screen. A book. Jiang picks up the book and examines the cover. The title reads Mind-Severing Sword Art. A faint smile appears on his face as he realizes this was what had been hidden there all along. Curious, he sits down and begins reading it on the spot. After finishing the manual, Jiang feels slightly disappointed. He realizes he may have raised his expectations too high. In his assessment, this martial art does not seem as powerful as those practiced by the 10 great martial artists of Hubei. Letting out a small breath, he acknowledges that while it is not extraordinary, it is still far from useless. Jiang becomes serious as he reflects on what he has read. He understands that the movement-based cultivation art he personally uses is not compatible with this sword art. However, he realizes that this technique is perfectly suited for the members of the Flame Hua clan. He recalls why he was never able to teach the clan swordsmanship before. Their foundational cultivation methods were fundamentally different from his own. Jiang's technique is built upon the movement art of the Peerless Nine Swords, whereas the Flame Hua clan's foundation revolves around Yang energy-based martial arts. These two systems directly oppose each other. Had he forced his own techniques upon them, the clan members would have suffered severe energy deviation. This is precisely why the Peerless Nine Swords can only be taught to a pure beginner, someone without any sect background or established cultivation foundation. Jiang quietly reflects that this was his fate. His own energy core had been destroyed long ago, which was why he had been weak in martial arts for most of his life. However, that same destruction allowed him to learn techniques that others could not. By the end of his reflection, Jiang is visibly pleased. He looks at the book again and smiles, deciding that from this day forward, the mind-severing sword art will become the official sword technique of the Flame Hua clan. The next scene shows Jiang presenting the book to Elder Zhou and Chief Du. He explains that he discovered it and believes it to be a surprisingly decent martial art. He encourages them to read it themselves. As soon as Elder Zhou and Chief Du go through the text, they are left in shock. If this truly is the original mind-severing sword art that was lost more than 10 years ago, then it qualifies as a high-grade martial art of immense value. They can hardly believe it was hidden inside a folding screen. Jiang confirms this casually, noting that whoever hid it there likely never imagined someone would discover it in such a place. As Jiang prepares to leave, Elder Zhou asks whether he truly intends to teach this martial art to the clan's warriors. Jiang confirms that he does, explaining that the clan lacks any proper swordsmanship technique, making this art extremely valuable to them. He further adds that starting tomorrow, he will personally train the warriors. However, he is unsure whether the instructors themselves will even dare to try learning it. Before leaving, Jiang mentions that he is going to rest and advises them to copy the manual first if they wish to learn it as well. Hearing this, both elders become so excited that they nearly begin celebrating on the spot. It is then revealed that not only Elder Zhou and Chief Du, but all of the Flame Hua clan's warriors feel the same joy. The clan had never possessed a martial art that truly belonged to them. The arrival of a high-level art like the mind-severing sword art binds the clan together more tightly than ever. This is also true for Dajin and Soyan, who are already learning the clan's secret martial arts. Meanwhile, Zhangshan's 4 demons choose to focus solely on their own martial paths. Their training is already extremely harsh, and even without the mind-severing sword art, they possess more than enough potential to reach the rank of true martial masters. Another month passes. Jiang is seen walking slowly toward the training grounds, thinking about his siblings. Since beginning their martial training, they appear happier than ever, especially the 2 children. This makes perfect sense to him, as they can feel their growth day by day. Their talent as martial artists is beyond words. Jiang even finds himself thinking that they are quite adorable. Suddenly, something feels strange. The training grounds seem unusually empty. At that moment, Masak calls out to Jiang from the side. Jiang asks where everyone has gone. Masak is surprised by the question and explains that today is the Little Dragon Ascension Tournament. Jiang asks what kind of tournament it is. Masak explains that it is the biggest event in Xichang, held once every 5 years. The winner earns the right to participate in the Orthodox Murim tournament. Masak is genuinely shocked that Jiang has never heard of it. Hearing this, Jiang immediately rushes toward the market area where the tournament is being held. As he runs, he angrily thinks that someone should have informed him earlier. In his frustration, he mentally curses both elders for failing to tell him. The scene shifts to the tournament registration area. Elder Zhou is present with Dajin and Soyan. He instructs the 2 children to write their names on the participant roster. Soyan reacts with visible excitement, happy that the moment has finally arrived. Suddenly, a mocking voice interrupts. A man points out that the Flame Hua clan children rarely showed their faces in past martial tournaments, making their presence unexpected. This man is revealed to be Yongxian, the chief steward of the Bank clan. Standing beside him is a young boy from the same clan. Elder Zhou greets him respectfully, apologizing that the Flame Hua clan has been unable to maintain proper relations due to their poor circumstances. The Bank clan steward responds with a cold laugh, stating that the Flame Hua clan's decline is not recent news. He adds that their situation seems slightly better now, but mocks them by questioning how they could even afford the tournament entry fee. He sarcastically wonders whether they have any food left after paying it. He continues by pointing out that the Flame Hua clan has unpaid membership fees going back 10 years. He ridicules Elder Zhou for dragging starving children into such an event. The scene shifts again, showing Jiang standing atop a tall building, still searching for the tournament grounds. He curses himself for not asking Masak for directions beforehand. Suddenly, he notices something and wonders if the tournament might be taking place there. The setting moves to the marketplace, where 2 people dressed in green robes are walking. One of them is a young woman, drawing the stares of many men due to her stunning beauty. She remarks that Xichang is even more crowded than she had heard. At that moment, Jiang accidentally bumps into her. Without stopping, he rudely tells her to move aside and continues walking. Irritated that he still cannot find the tournament, he then turns back and asks her if she knows where the Little Dragon Ascension Tournament is being held. The girl does not respond and only stares at him. Jiang becomes annoyed and asks why she is looking at him that way. The elderly man accompanying her steps forward and apologizes, explaining that they too have just arrived and are searching for the tournament location. He politely asks Jiang to inform them if he finds it first. Jiang pauses briefly, then coldly tells them to find it themselves and stay out of his way before leaving abruptly. The girl becomes angry, remarking that she has never met someone so rude. The old man agrees, saying that not only his appearance but also his behavior is a complete mess, as if madness has entirely taken him over. The girl suddenly looks shocked and asks whether that person could be who she thinks he is. The old man confirms that he is Jiang of the Flame Hua clan, the grandson of Hua Judai. He quietly remarks that it was a good thing he came personally. The scene returns to the tournament grounds, where people sense the atmosphere growing tense and wonder if a fight is about to break out. Elder Zhou steps forward angrily and declares that young Master Jiang has recently recovered and that the Flame Hua clan's situation is improving. He assures that all delayed membership fees will be repaid soon and that this is not something the Bank clan needs to concern itself with. The Bank clan steward mocks this claim, sarcastically asking whether they plan to pay after another 10 years. He laughs coldly and then turns his attention to Dajin and Soyan. He suggests that if they are participating, they must have inherited the incredible red flame art, the Flame Hua clan's secret technique. He then questions whether Elder Zhou is rushing too quickly to pretend everything is normal just because Jiang has supposedly recovered. Enraged by these insults, Elder Zhou slowly reaches for his sword. The steward immediately shouts, accusing him of attempting to draw his weapon. Elder Zhou responds calmly but firmly, warning him to watch his words in front of children, as even his patience has limits. This completely infuriates the Bank clan steward. He draws his sword and taunts Elder Zhou, claiming that despite their miserable situation, they still cling to pride. He then dares Elder Zhou to draw his blade if he has the courage. Elder Zhou draws his sword, and both sides glare at each other. The crowd murmurs in shock. Jiang's voice suddenly cuts through the tension, telling them that this is a children's sparring day, and not a place for adults to interfere. He firmly states that the main characters today are the children of Sicheng who came to participate. Yongxian mockingly addresses Jiang, calling him the famous crazy young master, and asking what he came here to take. Jiang ignores him completely, and scolds Dajin and Soyin for not telling him about the event. Soyin explains that they wanted to surprise him by winning. Jiang then turns to Yongxian and criticizes him for boasting about wealth instead of martial arts. He says a martial artist should trust their sword, not gold. Yongxian becomes furious and questions Jiang's audacity. The elderly man intervenes, calmly praising Jiang for speaking honestly. Yongxian angrily snaps back, but the elder suggests that since it is a special day, they should put away their swords. Yongxian rudely tells the elder to mind his own business. The elder's granddaughter quietly comments on his rudeness. Yongxian continues mocking poverty and suggests Jiang should have bought his siblings new clothes, sarcastically asking if all his money went into entry fees. Elder Zhou becomes enraged and declares that he will kill him, but the elder again intervenes, stating that fine clothing does not make a martial master. Yongxian finally turns away in anger and challenges them to prove their skills in the sparring ring. Jiang listens calmly. The elder advises him not to take such words to heart, as such people exist everywhere. Jiang agrees. Elder Zhou notices that the elder looks strangely familiar. At that moment, an attendant arrives and leads the Flame HWA clan to their seats. Food is being served, and Dajin and Soyin become excited at the sight. Jiang tells them not to eat too much. Yongxian is escorted to the VIP seats and smirks when he notices Jiang. Jiang feels intense anger and imagines beating him. The elder sits beside Jiang, asking if the seat is free. Jiang allows it, though he wonders why the man keeps staying near him. Jiang warns everyone not to drink tea or alcohol. Soon, the host announces the beginning of the Little Dragon Ascension tournament. The Sicheng Siak clan head, Siak Ildo, welcomes everyone. Upon seeing the elder, his eyes widen and he rushes over. Bowing deeply, he identifies the elder as Tang Sumun, the Poison Emperor. The crowd is shocked. It is revealed that only 4 individuals in the Central Plains ever held the title of Emperor: the Sword Emperor, the Fist Emperor, the Whip Emperor, and the Poison Emperor. Yongxian panics, realizing his mistake. Jiang recalls the past war with the Divine Demon and remembers Tang Sumun as one of the young prodigies of that era. Siak Ildo offers VIP seats, but the Poison Emperor declines, choosing to stay where he is. He notices Jiang and apologizes for not recognizing him. Jiang dismisses it and urges the sparring to begin quickly. The Poison Emperor silently reflects on how much Jiang resembles his old rival and friend, the Flame Emperor HWA Judy. With that thought, both chapters come to an end. We then see the head of the Siak clan speaking to Jiang, remarking that the weather is extremely hot today, so the matches will begin soon. He asks Jiang to wait patiently for a moment. The Siak clan head then casually asks whether Jiang is planning to participate as well. Jiang looks confused and asks what he means by participating. The Siak clan head explains that he is referring to the Orthodox Murim tournament, which is held once every 5 years and will be taking place soon. Before he can finish, Jiang interrupts him and says that participating in it brings him no benefit at the moment. Hearing this, the Siak clan head responds with disappointment, saying that it is truly unfortunate. Behind them, Gobi appears extremely nervous. He immediately approaches the Poison Emperor, bows deeply, and offers a sincere apology for what happened earlier. He admits that he failed to recognize him and begs for forgiveness. The Poison Emperor completely ignores him, calmly continues drinking, and then places his cup down. He comments that it is very noisy here and asks when the match will begin. Miss Tang steps forward and thanks everyone for recognizing and coming to see the Poison Emperor. She politely states that her grandfather does not want any disturbance and asks everyone to return to their duties. The Siak clan head calmly acknowledges her request and announces that the matches will begin immediately. Jiang watches the exchange with a sharp, observant gaze, Soon, a voice announces that before starting, a few simple rules will be explained. The Siak clan head steps into the center of the arena and explains that only non-lethal wooden weapons, such as wooden swords and spears, are allowed. Killing strikes are strictly forbidden. He continues by explaining that if a supervisor throws a blue pouch into the arena, the match is temporarily paused. If a red pouch is thrown, it signifies forfeiture. In both cases, the match will stop immediately. With the rules explained, he formally declares the start of the Little Dragon Ascension tournament. He then calls the first match, announcing Bank Clan's Bank Cian versus Flame, HWA Clan's HWA Soyin. Soyin is shown eating a large piece of meat when she is called. Jiang tells her to treat this as an opportunity to show everything she has learned so far, and to prove how much she has improved. Soyin confidently responds that she understands. Meanwhile, the Bank Clan boy walks toward the arena while thinking to himself that his opponent is the spoiled girl of the Flame HWA clan. He believes her luck is terrible to face him in the first match, and plans to start by breaking both of her arms. Once inside the arena, he addresses Soyin directly. Soyin cracks her fingers and remarks that she wanted to eat more meat, but guesses that will have to wait. She then coldly declares that he will be the first offering to her brilliant progress. At that moment, it becomes obvious that she truly is Jiang's sister. The Bank Clan boy becomes furious and yells at her, questioning how a little brat like her dares to speak to him that way. Soyin immediately takes her fighting stance and tells him to shut up, asking how long he plans to keep spouting nonsense. The boy sneers and says that she brought this upon herself, warning her to prepare herself because it will not end with just broken arms. Jiang watches the scene carefully and asks Elder Zhou whether the clan's relationships with others have always been this bad. Elder Zhou explains that when the Flame Emperor was alive, such things never happened. However, after the previous clan head's succession ceremony, some vassals left the clan and sought refuge with the Bank Clan. The chief steward Yongxian was one of them. As the Flame HWA clan grew weaker, those people became more openly hostile. Jiang comments that traitors only care about themselves and asks why they are behaving this way now. Elder Zhou explains that ideological conflicts with the previous clan head played a major role. Once the Bank Clan accepted the defecting vassals, their number of martial artists increased, and they exploited the hatred those vassals held toward Flame HWA clan. The scene shifts back to the arena. The Bank Clan boy launches a sword attack toward Soyin. She easily dodges the first strike and counters with a powerful kick. He tries to block with his arms, but the force sends him flying backward. Soyin immediately closes the distance and delivers a sharp kick straight to his face. He crashes to the ground, blood flowing from his nose. Groaning in pain, he angrily demands to know how she dared to do that. Soyin laughs and casually points out that his nose is bleeding. The Poison Emperor watches with visible delight and surprise. He notes that she is using kick techniques and asks Jiang if he taught her that. Jiang responds that he never had the chance, as his mind was not stable at the time, and that Elder Zhou taught her the basics. Miss Tang adds that it is not just kick techniques. For her age, Soyin is very skilled. Her dynamic vision and athletic ability supporting her techniques are of a high level. However, she also points out that her opponent has a wooden sword and questions how long she can last against a weapon-wielding enemy. The Bank Clan boy becomes even angrier after realizing that 2 of his front teeth were broken by that kick. He threatens to kill Soyin and charges at her with his sword. Soyin ducks under the attack with ease. He swings again, but she sidesteps and avoids it once more. He continues attacking relentlessly, swinging his sword over and over. Soyin dodges every single strike. Miss Tang, watching closely, praises her movement art and expresses amazement that she managed to evade all those attacks. Gobi grows increasingly anxious, wondering what is going on with this girl. The Bank Clan boy cannot land a single hit. Frustrated, he mocks her, calling her a slippery fish, and attacks again, this time. The pressure forces Soyin toward the edge of the arena. Seeing this, Chief Du and Elder Zhou panic and shout in alarm. They realize she has been cornered against the wall, with no space left to dodge. Elder Zhou urgently shouts at her to move away. Gobi, on the other hand, looks delighted and urges the boy to finish her without mercy. The Bank Clan boy rushes forward to strike. At the last moment, Soyin performs a large backflip, cleanly dodging the attack once again. The Poison Emperor and Miss Tang are both shocked by what they see. Jiang, however, smiles faintly, showing complete trust in his sister. The Bank Clan boy freezes in surprise. Hiding his shock, he mocks her, saying she acted like a fish earlier and now like a flying squirrel. Soyin smiles calmly and tells him that he is the one who is trapped now. The boy is stunned and asks what she means. Soyin coldly points out that he is now backed into the corner of the arena. She asks how many of her attacks he thinks he can block without falling back. Still confused, the boy asks what she is talking about. Soyin challenges him to try blocking her power with his slow wooden sword. In the next instant, she unleashes a relentless barrage of punches. The boy is unable to dodge or block a single one of them. Elder Joe and Chief Du watched closely as Soyin completely dominated her opponent. Realizing that victory was already certain, they became extremely excited and began shouting in joy, urging her to strike his face as well and make sure he would never be able to stand up and fight again. They were enjoying the moment to the fullest. At the same time, Gobi watched Elder Joe and Chief Du laughing openly. Seeing their reactions only made him even angrier. His frustration was clear, and it was obvious that he was completely losing control. Despite taking an overwhelming beating, the Bank Clan boy continued to mutter threats, still claiming that he would kill Soyin. Soyin responded with laughter, calmly stating that his threats were pointless. Without hesitation, she delivered a devastating kick straight into his stomach. He attempted to block the attack with both his arms and his wooden sword, but the force was far beyond what he could handle. His body was sent flying into the corner of the arena, and his wooden sword shattered at the same time. Gobi immediately screamed in panic, pointing out that the wooden sword had broken, and demanding that the referee throw in the blue pouch. Moments later, a blue pouch was tossed into the arena, signaling that the sparring match was supposed to be temporarily suspended. However, Soyin showed no intention of stopping. She stared at the blue pouch on the ground, calmly considering her next move. She seemed completely unbothered by the interruption, and appeared to be deciding whether to end the match immediately or ignore the signal altogether. The Bank Clan boy, still lying in pain, mocked her and claimed that the fight was not over yet. He threatened to return with warriors and wipe out her entire clan. It was obvious that he had lost his sanity after taking so much damage. Soyin responded with a relaxed yet dangerous smile. She pointed out that his biggest problem had always been his mouth. She reminded him that his sword had already broken in the middle of the fight, yet he was still demanding that she stop. She made it clear that she had no intention of stopping at all. The Bank Clan boy grew visibly nervous and tried to argue that throwing the blue pouch meant the sparring match was suspended. Soyin dismissed this completely, stating that she had no reason to care about the rules. She told him that he could bring as many warriors as he wanted later, but for now he was finished. At that moment, many spectators were reminded of Jiang when they saw Soyin's expression and attitude. The Bank Clan boy, now trembling in fear, asked what she was planning to do next. Soyin released her energy and launched forward with a powerful strike. Gobi watched in shock, unable to understand why the match had not been stopped even after the blue pouch was thrown. In the next instant, a single punch slammed into the Bank Clan boy, knocking him flat to the ground and ending the fight completely. Jiang became extremely excited upon seeing this and shouted his approval loudly. Meanwhile, Gobi angrily yelled at the referee, questioning why the fight had not been stopped when the blue pouch was clearly thrown. Soyin calmly walked out of the arena as the announcement echoed across the grounds, declaring that Flame Hua Clan's Hua Soyin had been disqualified. Elder Joe reacted with mild satisfaction, stating that this was exactly how the fight should have ended. Although Soyin was officially disqualified, Elder Joe was still pleased because she had clearly won the match. Jiang happily praised her, calling her performance excellent, as Soyin continued walking back toward him and the others. As she passed by, Soyin noticed Gobi trembling with rage. She playfully stuck out her tongue at him and mocked him before walking away with a laugh. Gobi's anger reached its limit, and it was clear that if circumstances allowed, he would have tried to kill her on the spot. However, he restrained himself due to the situation. When Soyin returned to Jiang and the others, she casually announced that she was back. Elder Joe asked her whether she remembered that a sparring match must stop once a blue pouch is thrown. Soyin answered while eating a piece of meat, admitting that she knew, but explaining that beating that bastard was far more fun than simply winning. Elder Joe did not scold her, and instead agreed with her reasoning. Jiang burst into laughter and said that this was exactly what he expected from his little sister. Suddenly, Jiang stood up and began dancing excitedly, wondering aloud why he felt so happy even though his sister had been disqualified. Poison Emperor laughed while watching Jiang dance and commented that Jiang was surprisingly good at it. Jiang replied that he felt amazing. Elder Joe, however, was visibly embarrassed and urged Jiang to stop, saying that his strange dancing was ruining the clan's dignity. Jiang ignored the warning and continued dancing, explaining that he was simply too happy to stop. Elder Joe worried that Jiang's behavior would disgrace the clan, but Jiang did not care. Meanwhile, Gobi was grinding his teeth in rage, unable to contain his fury. Jiang eventually sat down and cheerfully invited the Poison Emperor to drink as much as he wanted. Internally, Jiang thought that since he was not paying for it himself, there was no reason to hold back. Poison Emperor laughed and agreed, saying it sounded wonderful. Miss Tang silently observed everything. While drinking, Poison Emperor commented that Soyin could have one even more easily if she had used the clan's secret art. He asked why she chose not to use it. Soyin casually replied that there was no need to waste the clan's secret art on someone like that. She pointed out that she had already overwhelmed him without it. She further explained that using it unnecessarily might have allowed him to figure out a counter. Poison Emperor laughed loudly and praised her cleverness, also commenting on how cute she was. He then ordered more alcohol from a nearby server. Jiang and Soyin continued eating and drinking comfortably, as Jiang watched them with a satisfied smile. Their drinking session showed no sign of ending, and Jiang clinking glasses with the Poison Emperor became a major attraction for everyone present. Several more matches passed, but the crowd's attention remained focused on Jiang and the Poison Emperor. Sok Ilio, the head of the Sok clan and host of the Little Dragon Ascension tournament, grew increasingly irritated by the situation. Eventually, the Sok clan head stepped into the arena and announced the next match. The fight would be between Flame Hua clan's young master Hua Dajin and Sok clan's young master Sok Chiang. Hearing this, Dajin stood up, bowed politely to Elder Zhou and Jiang, and said he was heading out. Jiang enthusiastically encouraged him to show everyone his strength. Dajin entered the arena carrying his sword. When Poison Emperor noticed that Dajin was using a sword, he looked surprised and commented that the Flame Hua clan was choosing swordsmanship instead of bare-handed combat. The referee announced the start of the sparring match. Dajin and Sok Chiang faced each other with their swords pointed forward. The Sok clan head watched confidently, believing that Sok Chiang would become the tournament champion and prove the Sok clan's strength in front of the Poison Emperor. Sok Chiang rushed forward to attack, but Dajin calmly swung his sword once. The strike landed cleanly, instantly knocking Sok Chiang unconscious. Everyone was shocked. It became clear that Dajin was far stronger than expected, defeating his opponent with a single attack. The Sok clan head stood frozen in disbelief, unable to understand what had just happened. Soyin, Chief Du, and Elder Zhou erupted in celebration, shouting that Dajin had won. Elder Zhou even declared that he would have no regrets even if he died that day. Poison Emperor watched in amazement and praised the swordsmanship, admitting that he never expected the Flame Hua clan to possess such an effective sword art. Jiang stepped into the arena and explained that what Dajin had displayed was not merely an effective technique, but a sword art containing advanced martial arts principles. The crowd murmured in shock, realizing that Dajin had used an advanced martial art. Jiang revealed a martial arts manual and announced its name as the Mind-Severing Sword Art. The crowd gasped as they sensed powerful energy radiating from the manual. Jiang invited anyone who wanted to learn the Mind-Severing Sword Art to join the Flame Hua clan. He explained that even mastering just the first half of the art would lead to tremendous improvement. The crowd erupted with excitement, with many shouting that they wanted to join immediately. Jiang directed them to Chief Du for membership inquiries, and Chief Du quickly began organizing the line as people rushed forward. Poison Emperor laughed at the chaos, commenting that recruiting new members in the middle of an event perfectly suited Jiang's crazy reputation. The Sok clan head watched everything with burning rage, thinking about how shameless Jiang's actions were. Gobi stood behind him and provoked him further, questioning whether he would really allow the Flame Hua clan to act so freely. The Sok clan head admitted that, with the Poison Emperor present, there was nothing he could do. Gobi then suggested that they should not let all their hard work benefit someone else, and proposed a plan. When asked about the plan, Gobi explained that they would alter the tournament bracket. He suggested fixing Dajin's next match against a much stronger opponent, and specifically recommended sending in Sok Yuso. With that, the narration teased what would happen next, inviting viewers to stay tuned for the continuation of the story. It is then explained that when the influence of the Flame Hua clan, which had ruled Sicheng for some time, began to decline, the Siok clan and the Bank clan immediately started plotting to fill that power vacuum with their own strength. Through the Little Dragon Ascension tournament, held once every 5 years, they manipulated the tournament brackets so that only their own apprentice martial artists would win. In the end, these winners were sent to the Orthodox Murim tournament to increase their group's reputation. A group's reputation, in other words, represented its true power. In this way, they gradually took control of the Little Dragon Ascension tournament and expanded their dominance and influence even further. Soon after, the referee's voice echoed through the arena, announcing that this was the top 32 final match of the Little Dragon Ascension Tournament. The match would be between Half Moon Sect's young master Ban Yol and young master Siak Yoso. This immediately confirmed that the fighter Gobi had been referring to earlier was indeed Siak Yoso. Siak Yoso was then seen walking toward the arena. At the same time, the Poison Emperor commented to Jiang that whoever won this match would face Jiang's younger brother next. Elder Zhou looked visibly shocked upon seeing Siak Yoso and questioned why he was even here. Noticing Elder Zhou's unease, Jiang calmly asked whether Siak Yoso was strong. Elder Zhou replied that Siak Yoso was the champion of the previous Little Dragon Ascension Tournament. He had assumed that Siak Yoso had already joined the Diancheng sect and was training there. Jiang reacted casually, acknowledging the information without concern. Back in the arena, Siak Yoso recognized his opponent and questioned why they were meeting again. The other boy, clearly nervous, asked why Siak Yoso was participating, since the tournament only allowed competitors who were 14 years old or younger. Siak Yoso smiled and confidently stated that he was indeed 14 years old. The opponent was stunned and accused him of lying, pointing out that Siak Yoso had already turned 15. Before he could finish speaking, Siak Yoso launched a sudden sword attack in an extremely ruthless manner. In the next instant, the boy collapsed to the ground, and the announcement declared Siak Yoso as the winner. Dajin was shown watching the match with visible nervousness. Siak Yoso was then heard mocking the situation, remarking that his birthday had not arrived yet, implying that he technically still qualified. Seeing this, Elder Zhou stood up in anger, questioning how such underhanded tactics were allowed, and stating that he would demand an explanation. Before Elder Zhou could act, Jiang stopped him. With a faint smile, Jiang explained that this was actually the best possible opponent they could have hoped for. It became clear that Jiang wanted Dajin to fight Siak Yoso, so he could witness Dajin's true strength. As evening approached, the referee announced that the next match was about to begin. He emphasized that this would be the biggest clash of the tournament so far. Flame Hua clan's young master Hua Dajin would face the powerful champion candidate from the Diancheng sect, Siak Yoso. Both fighters entered the sparring arena and stared at each other intensely. Shows that the Poison Emperor commented that this felt like a final match happening far too early. Miss Tang kept her eyes fixed on the arena, while Gobi watched with a slow, confident smile. The Siak clan head also sat calmly, observing the scene. A loud cheer erupted as Soyin, Elder Zhou, and Chief Du shouted encouragement for Dajin to win. Jiang, however, remained calm and focused, watching the arena without reacting. Inside the arena, Siak Yoso commented that Dajin's sword technique was impressive. He noted that because of Dajin, his younger brother, who should have at least secured second place, had been eliminated. Dajin responded calmly, asking whether Siak Yoso was seeking revenge. Siak Yoso dismissed the idea, stating that revenge was foolish and not something he engaged in. His expression then turned cold and dangerous, as he declared that he would cripple Dajin so severely that he would never be able to wield a sword again. The fight began as Siak Yoso raised his sword and launched the 12 radiant sword strikes, charging at Dajin with terrifying speed. Dajin froze for a brief moment, shocked by Siak Yoso's incredible speed. He barely managed to block the attack with his own sword, but he struggled heavily. Siak Yoso's power matched his speed, making every strike overwhelming. During the exchange, Siak Yoso mocked Dajin, warning that if he kept blocking, his head would soon be shattered. Siak Yoso continued attacking relentlessly, while Dajin barely managed to defend himself. Watching this, the Poison Emperor commented to Jiang that this was the Diancheng sect's famous fast sword style, and that it would be extremely difficult to handle. Jiang said nothing, and continued watching the match with a serious expression. The Siak clan head watched with an evil smile, clearly pleased as he saw Dajin being pushed back. He thought to himself that this was the perfect chance to show the massive gap in skill. Back in the arena, Siak Yoso mocked Dajin again, pointing out how badly he was struggling. It was clear that Dajin was not overpowering Siak Yoso. Siak Yoso then launched another sword strike. Dajin barely dodged by ducking low and attempted a counterattack, but Siak Yoso evaded it effortlessly and immediately struck back. This time, the attack landed directly on Dajin's fingers. Siak Yoso stated that this was exactly what he had been waiting for. Dajin's fingers were shown to be completely fractured, making it nearly impossible for him to hold a sword. Siak Yoso charged again, laughing as he unleashed the 12 radiant sword strikes once more. Dajin was in no condition to block or dodge, but he still raised his sword and endured the attack head-on. The impact sent him flying across the arena, leaving him severely injured. As Dajin struggled to get back up, Siak Yoso pointed his sword at him and suggested ending it quickly. Just as he was about to strike, A blue pouch collided with his sword and fell to the ground, forcing him to stop. Seeing the blue pouch, Dajin relaxed slightly. Siak Yoso turned to look in the direction from which it was thrown. Jiang was standing there, his eyes glowing red with murderous intent, as if he wanted to kill Siak Yoso on the spot. However, he restrained himself. Siak Yoso scoffed at the interruption. Calling it foolish, he looked down at Dajin, said they would meet again later, and walked away from the arena. Dajin's hands were then shown in detail, completely swollen and blue, with all the bones broken. Jiang immediately told Dajin to let him examine his hand. Dajin showed his hand while groaning in pain. Jiang remarked that Siak Yoso had deliberately targeted the joints, and warned Dajin that what he was about to do would hurt. Dajin agreed and endured the pain as Jiang set the broken bones. Elder Zhou, Chief Du, and Soyan watched anxiously. Dajin struggled to hold back his tears during the process. Afterward, Jiang explained that while the bones were set, Dajin's hand was in no condition to wield a sword properly, and asked what he planned to do next. Despite trembling in pain, Dajin asked Jiang to bind his hand to a wooden sword. Jiang agreed without showing emotion, and tied Dajin's hand to the wooden sword. Dajin then returned to the arena and stood as if nothing had happened. The Poison Emperor commented on Dajin's incredible courage at such a young age. Jiang replied that Dajin was not a child from an ordinary martial clan, and that such resolve was expected of him. Jiang continued staring at the arena. Siak Yoso laughed, stating that he was now seeing Dajin in a new light. He admitted that he had expected Dajin to cry and beg for mercy. Seeing Dajin standing again, Siak Yoso told him that since he had returned, he would have to face the consequences, just like his older brother had when he was young. Hearing this, Dajin angrily questioned what Siak Yoso had just said. Siak Yoso advanced with a cruel laugh, declaring that Sicheng was about to gain a new pair of crippled brothers.